In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of the February 11, 2019 budget hearing of the Franklin Township Council was provided as required by law.
We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Chase? Here. Councilwoman Francois? Councilman Galtieri?
Here.
Mayor Kramer?
Here.
Councilman Onijaka? Councilman Prasad?
Here.
Councilwoman Pruitt? Deputy Mayor Vasanella?
Here.
Councilman Wright?
So for those of you watching, the disembodied voice of Councilwoman Pruitt is because she is out of the country, but she is taking time from her vacation to to somehow internet in, and she is listening to us, and I think she's trying to watch us on our live stream as well. So I would like a motion to open for public hearing.
So moved. Seconded.
Seeing no discussion on that, do I have a motion? All in favor of opening for public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. We are now open for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may do so on anything pertaining to government. You're limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Anyone wishing to speak?
Mayor, seeing no one coming forward from the public, a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Being no discussion, all in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And for the council members who are seeing 3 citizens in back, pay them no mind. They don't live in Franklin. They are so enamored with how well we do our budget. Those are 2 councilwomen from South Boundbrook, our neighbors, Beth Conkle and Allison Fetton. They are new council members, and they are here to learn, so let's do it right. And they have a copy of our budget, so they can follow along. I guess I shall turn the show over to our manager now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. I would like to, you should have a schedule in your book, and
Yep.
we will be adhering to that schedule tonight. However, there may be some deviation when we get to number 4, Recreation. Alice Sipowicz, the Director of Recreation, has another meeting that she's at the middle school, and she hopes to be here in time, but otherwise we'll just bump her back until we get to, until she gets here. The first department on the schedule today is the Tax Collector's Office. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet our new tax collector, Rosanna Gutierrez is to my right here. Rosanna has been with us for about 6 months now. 7 months, there you go. See, I was close, 7 months. And I think she's doing a fantastic job. We're going to talk a little bit tonight, not only about her OE budget, but about the staffing in her office. There's been some discussion of financial oversight, and I'll fill all of you in on what that discussion has been about. And then if you have any other questions once we're done. Obviously the budget in the collector's office is relatively small as departments go.
So the tax collector tab is second row, about the middle.
Right, about midway in the second tab. The department request this year is for $15,100. That shows an increase of $3,465. Primarily that increase is taken up by line number 026, which is maintenance of other equipment. You'll see there was no money budgeted in previous years for that. If you look at your cover sheet for the collector's office, and there's $3,170, which is just about the entire $3,465 difference. And that is for what is identified as Jaguar software and hardware. And I'm going to let Rosanna explain to you exactly what that is and what that will do for us to make the office more efficient.
Okay. Does it work? Yep. Hello? Okay. So Jaguar, it's in a lot of larger municipalities, and it would really help in regards to mail that come in. Not a lot of people, being that this is a senior community, a lot of people mail in their payments or they come in to make their payments for taxes or water. What Jaguar does is it's a scanner which allows us, instead of manually posting each individual check, it does the posting for us, and it also reads the check. So any checks that are missing, it's supposed to say $1,700. Instead, it reads $1,000, and then this will prevent any delay from finance notifying us saying that our deposit was $700 short because the written words were incorrect. This Jaguar system will help catch those ahead before actually making the deposit, and it scans hundreds payments, per minute, and versus an actual person actually manually posting each payment.
Sorry, so this is line item 26?
So line item 26, yes. So that is the increase that's reflected in this year's budget for the collector's office. Certainly that increases efficiencies as far as the mail-ins are concerned, which is something that we're striving for. And the technology is basically the same that's used in an ATM machine. It scans the check and then posts to the account.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
How much money would moving to this system save over time? Have we been able to kind of estimate what the savings would be?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. Until we put it into use, I don't know how much time we're going to be able to save. It obviously, every time someone has to sit at the computer and manually enter into the accounting program each individual check to the account and post to the account, for the thousands, literally, tens of thousands of payments that are received every quarter for taxes and thousands every month in water bills, many of which are coming in the mail. This will certainly be able to expedite that process. I can't put a time limit, a time number on it at this point.
Yeah.
But at the $3,400 cost on the collections, I think that it's a small amount of money to try to, make the office more efficient.
Bob, is this a one-time purchase, or will this be an annual?
There's a maintenance cost on it, but the hardware is $200 and the software is $2,970. And at $2,970, the maintenance won't be very much.
Right.
So do you put down one check at a time, or you put down a stack?
A stack.
A stack, yes. And it'll also help eliminate a lot of phone calls, which I know multiple departments receive on a daily or weekly basis. And because majority of these phone calls are people asking, hey, why isn't my check cleared the bank? Or, I don't see it reflected on the website, what's going on? And I'm sure many people get complaints that we're not able to keep up because we still have tons of mail to go through.
Okay, so it's $3,100, and it's going to save a lot of time, make us a better, unless anyone has other questions on it.
No, just that I think it's going to eliminate the human error factors.
Well, it does do that.
process.
Sure, it automates
Makes
the
us
process.
so much more cost efficient and.
It does, and then now I'm about to tell you the other part of this budget, and that's the personnel costs that are associated. So one of the things I think that as we look at the personnel and the staffing in the collector's office over the years, the staffing in the collector's office is a part-time employee less than it was 15 years ago. And I know that, technology is a wonderful thing, but the reality is that we've added about 4,000 lines to our property tax lines, and in that 4,000 that were added, all 4,000 of them are also water customers, which means we now have about 16,000 more quarterly tax bills and 16,000 quarterly water bills that need to be processed.
Right.
And if any of you have received phone calls, and I know several of you have, and I have been inundated over the last probably 6 to 8 months with phone calls and email inquiries and website inquiries into issues related to the payment of taxes and water bills. And really, it comes down to the need for people to do the work that's necessary to get the bills processed and all of the other related work in the collector's office. The things that we neglect to remember from time to time is all of the other work that the collector's office does. The daily inquiries from mortgage companies and attorneys' offices and people doing closeouts and flips on properties where you have to have a final read on a water meter and you have to have a final tax bill and you have to, all of those things require somebody to make the inquiries and do the work. And because of all of that, I've made the request for 2 additional clerical staff members for the collector's office. These are $35,000 a year clerks for the collector's office to bring it up to a staffing level that can provide the level of service that all of our residents are demanding, and rightfully so. That, in conjunction with the increased productivity and efficiencies with some small software additions, I think will make the office far more efficient than it is now. And it's not for lack of trying on the people who work there. They all put in many hours above and beyond what they're required to, especially at quarterly tax time, which, by the way, today ended the grace period for quarterly taxes, so very timely here. But that, I think, is time that we have to staff this office appropriately.
Two full.
Go ahead, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. There are 2 full-time positions?
2 full-time positions, yes.
And would they also be, I'm going to say, kind of divided between?
Water and their
So-
water collector
so-
and tax collector, so their salaries get divided.
Okay.
So it'd be $35,000 to water and $35,000 to the municipal budget.
Before benefits.
Before benefits, correct.
Mr. Chase?
Well, I find myself wondering if the Jaguar software is going to help so much, do we also need both these positions?
Fair question.
And that's a fair question. And I think that while it's fair to say that the Jaguar software will make the office more efficient for all of those people who send their taxes in by mail, what we're finding is all of the other things are the things that are taking the time. It's that right now, that's put us so far behind that it's almost impossible to get ahead. But there's all of the other work that needs to be done in the collector's office that, unfortunately, it does have an impact. We have, and we'll have to ask John House again this year, but there's about 1,000 property sales annually in town, and all of those property sales require final order reads, final tax payout, tax bills, and all of that work. There's all of the inquiries on tax liens. I mean, how many liens did we sell this past tax sale?
Over 600.
Over 600 liens. That's just the new liens, not to mention all of the old liens, all of which need to be processed. The payouts, you do tax title lien redemptions on your agenda every 2 weeks. All of that work needs to be done. And those phone calls and those website inquiries are just as numerous as the ones about, did my check clear yet? Or how much did I pay in taxes? Now the most recent one is it's February. And now the phone calls in the website, and I get all the website inquiries, are how much did I pay in 2018 property tax?
I get, this is not as a criticism to you, but I get a call once to twice a week about people calling, they can't get a hold of anyone.
Right.
So I'm.
So one and that's and you get 2 and I probably get 15 because they usually call me. I try to keep them from calling all of you, but one of the things that we see is with the technology being what it is and communication technology being what it is, When they call and they get the voicemail, they don't leave a voicemail. And then they call a second time, and now maybe the second time they leave a voicemail. And if they don't get a response back in an hour, they send an email. And if they don't get a response to the email, they go to the website and do a website inquiry. It's 4 or 5 communications for the same thing. But each time one of those things gets done, a staff member has to sit there and either answer the email or listen to the voicemail, and it takes time. You know, on average during the grace period, there are about 100 to 150 voicemails a day that are left in the collector's office. If you only spend a minute on each one of them, which no one ever spends just a minute on each one, that's that's 150 minutes right there. That's 3 hours. You know no one ever spends a minute, Councilman. That's my point. It's 3 hours minimum for one employee just to sit and listen to them. They haven't answered any of them yet. So that this'll, and the other part that this will allow us to do is, in the booth, in the lobby, there will always be 2 members there, and they'll be able to alternate half-day and send 2 members of the office back to the other and answer the phones. So there'll always be somebody in the office to answer the phones. So that's the purpose behind it.
Go ahead.
Do we have technical support for the software? And
The IT department will our IT
department.
department will make, yeah.
So we're not paying any money for.
No, this is at this cost. It's just to purchase it and install it, and when it needs updates, the IT department will be able to update it.
Thank you.
All right.
I just have one question for revenue. Nothing to do with staffing. I don't remember when it was. A couple of times over the years, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you weren't here, but I know I inquired as to why we didn't have the whatever you call where you pay online. You had Visa, I think, and I don't know if you had Discovery, but inquired as to American Express, and for some reason, they said, oh, well, we didn't think of it. We can do it, and for some reason wasn't implemented, and I'm wondering, understanding the can I finish, please? Understanding the cost, because there is a cost, as all of them have a cost, is passed on to the person, but is there a reason, do they not allow missed payments via that?
It was the cost that was going to be charged to the township that would have been charged to all the taxpayers, not the cost that was going to be charged to the person doing the transaction.
Oh, you mean a setup cost?
Not setup costs. You need to pay American Express to be able to take American Express cards.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So there was an initial
No,
fee?
not initial.
Okay.
Each transaction.
Okay, whatever it was, I'm just asking. So there was cost, is it, and if the cost,
Take American Express also at no cost.
So we didn't get to that, and this was actually going to be tomorrow's meeting because it's more relevant, but I can talk about it now.
I didn't mean to jump the gun. I
No,
had
it's
idea.
okay. It's okay, Councilman.
While I was on the revenue.
It's okay. So if you go to the website right now and you go to the tax collector's office, you'll see that there's a new link, and it's been on social media. And if you click on the banner on our website right now, it'll bring you to what's called WHIP, which doesn't matter. It's a software program that works with Edmunds, which is our accounting and payment software. That's who we use. And so what you can do now is, and in the next few weeks, we'll be online for payments. But right now, if you need tax information or you need the billing, payment information on your water utility or your taxes, you can just go in by name, by block and lot, by address, however you want to search, put your name in, hit enter, you pick your name, and it'll give you all of your tax payment history. It'll give you your block and lot, your assessment total, and you can do the same thing with the water utility as well. And that's where you'll be able to pay online, and now we'll be able to do that with credit cards more so than we were in the past. Now, I'll just tell people now, Visa debit, not any other debit, but Visa debit only incurs a cost of about $3 per transaction, $3.95, $4 per transaction. E-checks are about $1.05 per transaction, but it's about 2.95% for all other credit cards. So, if you need to use a credit card, I understand it, and now you'll be able to do that, and it's just going to cost you about $80 on a $3,000 payment, that's all.
3,000, yeah, it's quarterly payment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know there's costs, and we can't, I'm not suggesting that we absorb it.
No,
all.
but
I just-
we're
I
fixing
just-
it. That's what you're talking
Right,
about is something
so-
that we will now be able to do.
That will be there.
We're
so
switching over to a new
People want the
system.
luxury, they go on there and they'll be able to do anything. They
Right.
pay what they have to
The
pay.
start of the switchover took place
Great.
Monday?
That-
Or what's today? No,
all
Friday,
right.
Friday. The
I'm
start of the
happy to hear it's
switchover took
happening.
place Friday.
I'm happy to hear it's happening. Thank you.
Yep. So,
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you.
One point is the direct transfer bank payment.
ACH payments.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's free of charge.
That's through your bank. You can set
through
that
your
up through your bank, and that's
And
just
that's the
a
most
transfer of
cost-efficient
money.
way of
That is
doing
the
it.
most cost-efficient way to do
Right.
it.
Right. So, do we have anything else?
Exactly.
Do we have anything else on the collector?
I have nothing more, Mayor.
Great. So, at this rate, we will be out at 10. So if
Now we're going to move faster
we
now.
can keep our questions limited to the budget rather than the running of,
In this particular case, with the additional staff, and that will only happen one more time in the next 2 nights, tonight and the following night, so we shouldn't have that issue
Okay.
any further. I understand when we ask for additional staff, why there's additional questions. There should be. So,
all right. So are we up to land use?
yep, we're up to land use. Mr. Healy? You're all done. Thank you.
Mr. Healy, not a stranger to this table.
So Mr. Healy comes here wearing several hats. One hat that he didn't wear last year that he now wears, and that is, so Mr. Healy is now the Director of Land Use as opposed to the Township Planning and Zoning Department Head. Land use encompassing both planning and zoning and now engineering as well, given the fact that we have gone and changed our model for township engineering to go to a consulting engineering firm for that service as opposed to having a township engineer. So the budgets, and we'll go through them individually, there's several.
Which tab?
So the first one we'll go to is engineering, which is about 3 tabs later from where you were now at the collector's office.
Second row, second to last.
Yep, engineering. So engineering shows no change in staffing. And for the OE budget, it shows a $100,000 increase. So that $100,000 is taken up solely by the $100,000 for our consulting engineer to provide the township engineering services. When you look, this is kind of a balance here. The engineer and the assistant engineer in the previous year's budget accounted for about $260,000 in salary. In return, this is $100,000 being budgeted for CME, our engineering consultant. That is not a $160,000 savings. Part of that difference is because previously our employees billed escrow for all development work, and now that escrow work is being billed by CME. So they're about $260,000 worth of work every year, but only 100 of it is ours and 160 of it is developers. And it was probably close to that in the past. So I don't want there to be any misconception. It's about a break even in having a township engineering staff, including an engineer and assistant engineer, as it is to have a consulting engineer. As far as salaries are concerned, the savings come in is that we don't pay them benefits. So there's 2 less employees receiving health care benefits and pension payments and withholding payments. So that's where the cost savings is for now. And for the for the last 6 months of 2018, when we were under that, it seems to have worked well. And Mr. Healy has managed the consultant, and we seem at this point to be very satisfied with how things have gone so far. So that's the engineering budget. The rest of the engineering budget you can see is $12,795, and it is comprised primarily of the equipment and things like printing and binding and work to run the engineering department. Any questions on the engineering OE? Okay. The next will be planning and zoning. Planning and zoning, no change in staffing. And the planning and zoning, the planning board budget, which is what it's called, and it is planning and zoning, but the planning board budget shows a decrease of $10,000. And that $10,000 is under line 028, which is professional consultant and specialized services. And Mark, why is that decreased?
In the 2018 budget, we did have, that was there because we hired a consultant to do our circulation element of our master plan, which is still ongoing. We are going to be finishing the master plan this year. I don't think we need the full 40. I've requested the 30,000 just in case there's a need arises out of the master plan for a consultant. I don't anticipate it, but nonetheless, it's requested just in case.
Questions?
Okay.
Now, just curious, the title technically changes?
Mark's title did
did
change, yes. Mark is the director of land use.
Okay, I just see still as director of planning, but I guess that.
He is, well, it's all one big happy family.
I was just wondering if it was an official.
There is.
Because I always refer to him as
He is the director of land use now. That's his official title. Mark has some other budgets, though, before we end here.
Can go over them very quickly, Bob.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, Historic Commission and Environmental Commission.
Right, which it's about three rows down, so called commissions. It's off to the like 3 in from the right, underneath snow removal. Those are the Shade Tree Commission, which I know you don't really. That's more. That's Carl, right?
Last row, third tab.
Right. Yep.
Here. Okay, $250.
Well, yeah, I mean, I might as well just get Shade Tree out of the way. Usually Carl Hauk would handle that as he's the liaison to Shade Tree, but I can handle it for it. It's $250. It covers their dues to the state organization. The next one in that and underneath that tab is environmental.
For $1,200.
For $1,200. You betcha.
Historic is $2,900. That for.
Historic is there because it's just like some of these commissions are mandatory training if a new member becomes, if we get a new member on a commission and they have to go to mandatory training, just like the planning board has to go to mandatory training. Historic does too.
Yeah, and this is mostly related to, we've received certified local government status, and there's education requirements associated with that.
Great.
And that's it. You're done. Unless council has a question for you.
There are some economic benefits to the certified local government, the benefits.
The state promises access to grants. That's one thing, but also it basically gives our local historic commission authority to grant improvement projects that affect historic properties, whereas otherwise it would have to go to the State Historic Preservation Office.
Which is very slow.
Which is very slow.
How many years did it take us to get certified local government?
I think at least 4 years.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Moving on. Thank you, Mark. Next will be police, 911, OEM, animal control, and some capital to go with it.
Please come in force. Third row, fourth tab, if we're starting with police.
Yeah, go back towards the beginning. Back to the beginning.
Starting with police.
We might as well. We can start with police. So the police department for 2019 presents a budget with a total of $490,030. which is an increase of 71,410. The bulk of that, and there's some give and take here, but the largest increase over the 2018 budget is in line 51, purchase of vehicles. There was $68,600 budgeted in the 2018 budget, and this budget calls for $100,000, which shows an increase of $31,400 of the 71. The other $40,000 is made up by, and you can see in the column on the right, the difference between 2019 and 2018. There's a number of different lines that show fluctuations.
So how many vehicles are we buying and why?
So before we talk about how many vehicles, because we'll talk about other vehicles, the reason why these vehicles in particular are in the OE budget as opposed to the capital budget is because certain vehicles are not categorized as capital expenditures by the state of New Jersey because they don't have a useful life of more than 5 years, which is what is required to be a capital expenditure. These are cars. In particular, I believe these are Chevrolet Impalas. Phil?
That's correct.
That's correct. So how many of them would be purchased with the $100,000?
That would be 3 fully outfitted, unmarked units.
And so does that include,
I'm sorry, actually, it would be 3 unmarked Impalas and a Fusion, and 1 Fusion.
and
That would be a surveillance vehicle.
so that does not include all the equipment that goes in and on the car?
Correct.
These are the cars.
Right. And
Yes.
what budget are the?
Ironically, the state of New Jersey, in outfitting these vehicles, we budget in the capital budget for all of the equipment used to outfit these cars. Don't ask me why, but that's just the way it is.
So
right.
roughly how much does it cost to outfit each car?
Well, these are unmarked cars, which are different. So, Lieutenant?
About $5,000 in a light package and some medical equipment and the radios.
We didn't get to the capital budget yet. You can talk about the marked cars when we get there for
Yeah,
the SUVs.
Right, it's just though, when we're talking about a car, you guys like to divide it into a car and then the accoutrements. I like to think of a car as everything that car is.
It's not that we like to, it's that the state of New Jersey tells us how to budget things, and that's how we do it, because the law says so.
And I hate them too, but
It is. So an SUV, and we'll get there, an SUV that costs about $30,000 for the vehicle, right? It winds up costing probably about $60,000 in total when you outfit it completely with a radio. 65? 55. Now, when you buy a new radio, and when you buy a new radar unit, and when you buy a new computer, it's about 60. I've done the math. But so yeah, it's about double.
right, and we've discussed all this in financial oversight.
And we have, and that's why you know it.
I think the viewing public needs to hear it.
They do. I agree. So that's why, and when we get to the capital budget, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, some of this equipment, accoutrements, can be swapped out.
Some of it can, but
And reused.
unfortunately, at this point, what happens is because and I don't know if you want to call it planned obsolescence or planned incompatibility. But what will happen is that over the course of the 4 or 5 years that go by before a vehicle becomes unserviceable, the manufacturer changes the interior dimensions and changes the exterior dimensions so that certain equipment can't be reused. Others, some of it can, and there certainly is, where it can be reused, it gets reused. But that's for a future discussion when we get to capital. This is the OE budget right now.
Bob, well, actually, I'll wait till the capital. Sorry.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, you had a question?
Is there anything on the operating or the other expenses here?
No.
Okay.
Where are we going?
So the next tab is 911.
Yeah,
The 911 budget is proposed at $216,500. This is an increase of $18,950. If you look, 16,950 of that 18,950 is in O26, maintenance and repair of other equipment. That is the line that more or less pays, among some other things, the Motorola annual contract, maintenance contract on our trunked radio system that provides communication not only to the police department, but the entire town, including all emergency services. So that contract alone is about 160, Brian?
I think it was 147.
147? Okay. I stand corrected. It's 147.
The calls are still going into the county, the 911 system?
No, never gone into the county. Okay. We've always been our own 911 PSAP.
Right.
We answer our own
you're
911 calls.
Connected back and forth.
There's an interoperability between the Somerset County Communications and Franklin Township to include the radio system itself.
Right.
It's a system that one doesn't function without the other. There's portions of the system that are housed by us, and there are portions of the system that are housed by Somerset County. Brian, it's 169 on the budget for the contract. And I know that includes some other costs, but it's 169 for the radio alone. Okay.
Okay.
911 done. Emergency management. Next tab. Emergency management was $5,250 last year, and it's $5,250 this year. The bulk of that emergency management budget is to include $3,000. That $3,000 is earmarked that in the event that an emergency is about to occur, and the stocking of the emergency management trailer with foodstuffs and perishables is necessary. This gives an opportunity for them to go out and prepare a shelter with foodstuffs in the event that it's needed. And so hopefully not needed, but that's why that $3,000 is budgeted annually there. And the rest is general equipment for emergency management. Okay.
Seeing no questions.
Animal control. Next tab. Animal control is proposing a budget of $40,640. That's an increase of $9,800 over last year's budget of $30,840. The bulk of that increase is the $6,000 in professional consultant and specialized services, which I believe is just reflecting an increase in the cost of veterinary services for the animals that need veterinary service. We overspent that line.
No, you didn't.
Well, and this is a little so the reason why it doesn't show number one is that it's 10/31 and not the full year on the actual, and the other is a significant portion because it was anticipated that it was going over was charged to the Animal Control Trust. If you see the bottom, the note that $4,776.44 of emergency vet services and $3,369 in medication, totaling $8,000, was charged to the Animal Control Trust.
Finished.
Well, it needs to be budgeted so that we're not reducing the trust by those costs. The trust is utilized for other purposes, including the offset of salary for part-time animal handlers and animal control officers in the animal shelter. So we don't want to reduce it by anything more than we're already planning to reduce it with the offset of salaries. So that's why we're going to budget the additional money in the OE budget. You know, and I say this like I'm a broken record every year. The truth is that $40,000 is about 1/3 of the actual costs and operating expenses for the shelter. The other $80,000 is made up in in-kind donations and cash donations to Second Chance for Animals and Angel Tales, the two nonprofit organizations that support it, and the mayor, who donates his mayoral marriage wedding fees to the animal shelter as well. And I'm not joking. That is the reality. The reality is that they save us in total about $100,000 a year, $80,000 in operating costs, and $20,000 in salary that they help offset every year. So we should just be thankful that it only costs us $40,000 because it could cost us a lot more.
My compliments to all of them.
Mine as well, and my thanks when doing budgets. And that is the OE budgets for the police department that they are responsible for. The capital budgets are at the end of the book. It's the very last tab, and it then turns sideways. And I just have to see which page it is. I'm told by Kathy that the police is kind of in the middle of the capital.
Typical.
Typical. They're in the middle of the road. There you are. Hey, somehow I just got lucky and turned to it. It is literally about halfway through, and I apologize. I'll be more than happy to wait until you get there. It comes right after the capital request forms for construction code, if that helps at all. There's a capital request summary sheet. Got it? Okay.
I found it.
So going page by page under the cover sheet, the first page is for 10 marked patrol vehicles. Gentlemen?
We're requesting 10 marked patrol vehicles simply for this. Currently, we are down 11 patrol vehicles for various reasons, mechanical reasons. Several were in an accident. We had one that was actually hit by a drunk driver while they were arresting a drunk driver, and we haven't lost that irony. But we are down 11 or 12 cars.
And down means not
down, as in they're gone. They're not coming back. They are mechanically unsound or totaled. We did get 9 cars last year, which still puts us down 3 cars. So we're still net -3. And with the special officers that we're putting out to the schools and so on and so forth, we're putting out 9 additional officers this year. So we have 9 additional officers that are being deployed during the day, and we're down 3 cars.
So in financial oversight, I asked the question, I'm asking it again for the public and the rest of council. Why can't the school officers just drive directly to the schools? Why do they need a police car?
Well, as you know, but we should inform the public, they are not allowed to. By law, they must report to the PD where they are given their gun. Class 3 special officers are not allowed to take the department firearm home. It must be secured at the PD. They must come in. They must receive their gun from a supervisor and then head out to the schools. They are not allowed to drive their own vehicles. They have to drive a department vehicle. Right now, we're actually carpooling to several of the schools that are close together because we run out of cars. And as Phil was saying, the TG has told us several of these cars had gotten to the point that they were just completely unsafe and they had to pull them out of service. So they're the ones that you see down there that are being used for parts and other things like that, but they were far past their life expectancy, and so we're hurting for cars, and that's why we need that many.
So police like acronyms. TG is Township Garage, for those of you who don't know that.
I would like to just make one other point.
Hang on.
Okay.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I may be jumping ahead, so apologies. But I'm looking at the 10 marked patrol vehicles, and it's 10 marked control vehicles, and that's a base price for just the vehicles. And then the line number 9 is the amount that would cost to outfit them?
Right. That is correct.
Okay, and then the marked patrol vehicles are somehow in addition to the 2 marked expeditions. They're not counted as part of the 10.
Correct. The expeditions are actually specialty vehicles that would be used by our emergency services unit and our traffic safety unit. The reason we choose expeditions for them is because those 2 units carry additional equipment, and the expedition is a larger vehicle as well as has a beefier suspension and system that can handle that extra equipment that those units are required to carry.
Okay, thank you.
I just do want to make one other point. It should be noted that about 33% or a third of our fleet is over 10 years old. So we are keeping our cars well beyond the suggested 5 years and beyond.
Good to know. So we're keeping up with maintenance and taking good care of them for the most part.
We're trying.
As best you can.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on the cars?
So that actually, so then we jump to the next page, as Councilwoman Pruitt just said, and the next page is the 2 marked expeditions that she was referencing, at a total of $85,000. I think that Lieutenant Rizzo just explained to you the purpose of those vehicles, so I don't know that we need to explain it any further. It's pretty
Mr. Mayor, so I guess my question would be, are we accounting for, I know we were experimenting with that conversion kit for,
The idling kit?
Yeah, the idling kit. Thank you.
So I'll let the police department explain the problems that we encountered with getting that done and where we are about to go with it now that we finally have some solution.
So the idling kit, if I understand correctly, there is no distributors or installers currently in the state of New Jersey, and the closest one we could find was Delaware. It's about an 8-hour install. So you're going to take either have officers drive down and then drive down again, or basically pay an officer to be in Delaware for 2 to 3 days to make sure that this got installed. I know Brian's been talking with major police, and they've been working on trying to get a license to install this, but
into the mic, please.
They declined the offer from the company to be one of their installers, but I was advised that they are working on another company that may be coming in New Jersey, so we're kind of waiting on that to see if we get an installer in New Jersey to move forward with that.
So the simple answer is no, that's not projected for these vehicles at this time because of just, it's not because we don't want to, it's because of just logistics nightmares that.
Right, we had hoped that at the very least we could get some of the older vehicles that were used on the side jobs done, as well as some of the new vehicles to do a side-by-side comparison on the new vehicle in the fleet versus an old vehicle in the fleet. Unfortunately, if there's no one local to put them in, it becomes a problem. And the company that we had looked at when we had costed it out last year for last year's budget is based out of Canada. And they did a rather large police department in Ohio, Columbus to be exact. However, I think that when you do nearly 100 vehicles, it's not hard to entice a company to come down and do the work in Ohio instead of having to drive them to Canada. And so if we're lucky and another vendor of similar equipment is able to be contracted locally, then we'll be able to move forward with the project. I think it's desperately needed, and I was kind of hoping that we would be further along with it.
The one benefit with these 10 marked patrol vehicles is Ford has made a more efficient engine for these models, and the estimated savings, I believe, was close to $6,000, $5,700.
That's what Ford.
That was Ford was projecting about a $6,000 fuel savings for each one of these vehicles.
Over the life of the car.
For the life of the no, per year, right?
Year? No.
It has to be over the life.
The article we read was for a year. I can research that further, but that seems
so do the math. Do the math quick, Mayor. I can do the math quick.
Somebody who just was looking at hybrid cars,
I believe you.
the $6,000 is for the life of the car.
At the fact that we're paying about $2 a gallon for gas, and so that would be a total of 3,000 gallons, and at about 10 miles to the gallon on average, that would be 30,000 miles a year. I'd like to think that our officers are driving a lot, but I know they're not putting 30,000 miles a year on those cars. About half that.
One thought, I don't know the economics of it, but one thought you might have is renting or hiring a truck, a car carrying truck, and put 4 or 5 or 6 cars on it and drive it to Delaware. I don't know if that works out. Anyone else?
No, it sounds like it would be expensive, but
we can look into it.
But in the spirit of trying to make it happen, if there's enough police departments, I don't know if you guys communicate with other, is there a
There's
collective?
been no other interest that I'm aware of. We were going to kind of be the trendsetter, so.
Because if we can get, I'm sure if there's money to be made, there'll be some vendors that want to.
We tried to group up we tried to group up with Port Authority was looking also at this
Okay,
system, and we were waiting to hear back from them, and I have not heard anything back. But we thought they would be great because they're consistently, and that's why we thought about Major Police Supply, because Port Authority also uses them. That if they were interested, then that would obviously bring an installer to New Jersey.
So we're being proactive and in time. Hopefully, we'll find a solution.
Maybe the state can put it on their best practices checklist.
That's a wonderful
Okay,
idea.
so I guess the outfit of the, sorry, just to continue
I'm
this
sorry,
along,
go
the, I know I started the question, but the outfit of the new vehicles is for.
Yeah, so I'd like to go to that sheet, which is, I think, the last, it's sheet number 9, and it's the last sheet for the police department capital. And that's the outfitting of new vehicles, and that totals $349,000. That's not the total for outfitting, but that's the emergency equipment for the vehicles, and that's where you're going to see my 30 and 30 figure kind of plays out a little bit, right? Do the math. It's about $349,000 to outfit all of the vehicles. That would be the 10 patrol vehicles, the 2 expeditions. There's the unmarked vehicles that were previously mentioned in the OE budget, plus 2 unmarked expeditions that are listed on another page in this request. So that would be,
18 cars?
I said 2 Explorers, and I already talked about the expeditions. So you're talking about that's 14 plus 4 is 18 vehicles total.
Okay.
Yep, that's the math on it. So for that, $349,000, depending on the type of vehicle it is, fully marked versus unmarked versus utility, and there's, obviously each vehicle gets different equipment based on its usage. The emergency equipment, sirens, lights, and all of that markings and everything else that goes with it, along with the equipment necessary in the trunk and the safety equipment that goes in the trunks. That's the $349,000. And then the mobile computers, which is item 6 on that list. Brian, you want to handle the mobile computers and how many there are and how that process works?
Sure, it's 14 mobile computers this year to get us back up to a normal cycle. We're looking at a 4-year cycle for the computers. We have 37 of them, which will put us next year at a 9-computer cycle, which is what we want to stay on and kind of stay consistent. So it'll be consistent number instead of up and down. So
I believe it was 2 years ago.
Two years ago
we did not replace
computers,
mobile computers 2 years ago at all.
So that'll put us on a
back on a 9
cycle
per year.
The computers are not related to new vehicles. They're on a replacement cycle. Whether we get, it doesn't matter how many new vehicles we get.
Right, the docking ports will work whether it's a new vehicle, old vehicle.
Actually, the new computers have new docking ports, but that's included in the capital with the computers.
They apply to all the cars then?
All the marked cars have them. Okay. Yes, all the marked cars have computers. That they don't all have a computer dedicated to it.
Right.
Because obviously cars sitting on the line not being utilized doesn't need to have a computer in it if it can be utilized in another vehicle that's out on the road. They can swap them out.
They're interchangeable.
They're interchangeable. It's a Panasonic Toughbook still.
Correct.
Right? Panasonic Toughbook laptop,
Right.
so that it goes into a docking port in the car and it can be swapped out between cars.
But you still need an ongoing replacement program.
Sure, because just like any other computer, 4 years and it's pretty much end of life.
Technology.
Absolutely.
Shorter.
Yep. So that's that. So that's part of the outfitting of the vehicles. The page before, or actually 2 pages before, item number 4 is 37 portable radios.
Yeah, so explain why a radio is $7,400.
Of the portable radios, you did the math on the 37 into 273?
Yes.
Brian?
That's what the price is. We actually get a 20% discount from Motorola with state contract, and that is actually the price after applying the discount. But it also it's the radio, it's the battery, it's the charger, it's the speaker mic.
Do they stop bullets?
They can.
Do
They can fly, Mr. Mayor.
What they do is they work when an officer needs it most. That's what they do.
We're currently 4 generations behind on radios.
So these are the
our radios are
ones-
bought in 2003.
These are the ones on their body that they have the.
Correct.
monitor
Correct.
on them.
Correct.
And then the mobile radio, I guess, is for the cars, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And does this include maintenance of the radios? Is it, or,
So no, your $169,000 maintenance contract is what covers maintenance on the radios.
When we do buy the new radios, we get
There's a warranty.
3-year. We buy the extended warranty with the radios.
so I obviously want my officers to be safe and able to communicate. That's absolutely vital. There's no option on this? There's no other?
No.
That's the price.
That's the radio that works with the $10 million radio system that we have.
And also,
And it provides all of the interoperability across the spectrum, countywide, discipline-wide. It provides all the talk groups for emergency management, and so it makes it so that the thing that, so now the former communications officer comes out in May. The key to making a safe environment for the police and for fire and for first aid, and what the tragedies that you hear are the lack of ability to communicate. Our system doesn't have a lack of ability to communicate. It's a very, very good one. The council back in the early 2000s was really way ahead of the curve here, and we got a very, very good radio system, and it works very well.
Yeah, and that was a major problem in 9/11. that
It was a huge problem.
People couldn't talk to each other, but, okay.
so correct me if I'm wrong, this is a requirement to use this particular radio, correct?
Yeah, you have to have these type of radios to work on our radio system, correct?
And it's not just us it's not just one county. From what I understand, it's multiple counties do the same requirement too. So it's not just like we're being put in the boat because of where we are.
No, absolutely not. We have a Motorola radio system that requires the use of Motorola radios, and these are the radios that work with the type of system that we have.
Right.
And like Brian said, we're 4 generations behind, so we've managed to make the ones that we got initially in 2003. Isn't that what, 2003? When we got them in 2003, we've managed to make them last this long. That's a long time for a handheld radio.
Yes.
They stopped making the parts for them in 2009 and covering by Motorola. We've been having a local Motorola dealer actually disassemble the old radios so we can use the parts to fix our current radios that we currently use.
So I'm hearing we're not buying 34 radios every year.
No, you're buying 34. This is year 2 of 3.
It's 2 of a 4-year.
I'm sorry, 2 of 4. Yeah, this is
year 2 of a 4-year project.
You did this last year as well.
And we're going to be doing it next year and the year after this
Correct.
money?
Correct.
But then in theory, we should
Not
be
the
caught
not
up.
the exact.
And then in
not the
theory, you
exact
should be
amount.
good for another 10 years plus.
And
Right.
then we can start rebalancing again, right?
So,
All right, go ahead.
just wanted to add, Mayor, I remember when now manager, but then Sergeant Warlocker was pushing the system and the maintenance and the cost, which I was astonished, going back over 12 years ago when I was on public safety, at the cost, probably next to salaries, we probably have more invested in our communication system than our actual automobile system. If you look at all the auto expenses, and I trust what you guys are doing. I mean, it's a lot of money, and who knows, maybe
It
some
is.
way you'll find
And-
equivalent stuff cheaper in the future, but the importance of communication, whether, you hear the thing with the fire when they didn't, out west, and they didn't have proper communication, what you were referring to, Mayor. So as much as, boy, I would love for it to be cheaper, communication is ultimately what can save someone's life. And,
So-
time in this town probably has helped. save
Sure,
lives.
absolutely has. And the only thing I would say to you is that if you want to see what, between the requirements of the FCC and what has happened to emergency communications over the last 10 years and where this is all going, there were towns that didn't do what we did, and they are now behind the 8 ball, and instead of spending $10 million over 15 years, which is what we did as we built towers and built the system, they're looking at numbers like $20 and $25 million to do less than what we have, because the costs have increased dramatically. And now with the frequency, availability of frequencies and what are we up to now, the 800s? Right?
Well, everybody's looking to go 7 or 800.
7 or 800, yeah, which, when we first started, we were in the 400s, but our system, thanks to some foresight by some people, not me, but one guy down from me, we were into a system that was compatible with the upgrades that some towns weren't, and we were able to convert. And actually, Somerset County was on the hook for a significant amount because they went analog instead of digital when we went digital, and that made a big difference. So these costs, while they're huge, could have been a lot worse. Okay. I think we got them all. Councilman Galtieri? Sure. Microphone, Councilman? Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. You have 10 marked patrol vehicles, and I might have been missing on something there. But as I go through the pages, I'm a little confused. If I have 10 marked patrol vehicles, unmarked, doesn't really matter. What else am I adding to that 325 to put the cop car together?
Light bar, siren, all the lighting, all of the emergency equipment in the vehicle, the roll cage, that's what you're putting in.
No. I mean,
The mobile radio right above it, number 8.
say that again, please.
Look at the cover sheet. That's where he's going off of now.
No. The capital bequest,
Mm-hmm.
I see the 325, right? So keeping the 325 on the brain,
Yeah. That's $32,500 per vehicle off the production line. It's
Now-
10 vehicles at $32,500, which is what they cost.
the mobile computer, they're going into the new car.
Unrelated to the vehicles. They go in vehicles, but this is part of a annual replacement of 1/4 of the number of portable computers that the police department has as part of an annual replacement, which just to replace end of life computers.
So even if we were buying no cars, we would.
You still need to buy the computers, even if you're buying 0 cars, correct?
And that would go for the mobile radios too, correct?
The mobile radios are being replaced because they're replacing end-of-life radios.
Okay.
But specifically, these are going in the brand-new vehicles.
They are going into the brand new
Correct.
vehicles. So if that's the case, then that 142 will go along with that 325?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. As does the 349 at the end.
So you got
Okay.
Portion of it, not all of it. Not all of it. The 349, that's 10 vehicles, that's 10 marked patrol vehicles. Like I said, there's 10 marked patrol vehicles, there's 2 marked expeditions, and there's 2 unmarked explorers. Those are those 3, plus the 4 vehicles included in the OE budget, that brings the total to 18. 18 vehicles total. All of the emergency equipment to be used in all of those 18 vehicles totals $349,000 to outfit.
Okay.
The 10 vehicles are one type of outfitting. The 2 unmarked Explorers are one type of outfitting. The 2 marked Expeditions are one type of outfitting. And the 3 Impalas are one type, and the Fusion is so every vehicle is a little bit different. You have to sit there and you have to go through all of the equipment utilized for each one, and it's not as easy as just saying that a percentage of the 349 goes equally across the 18, because it doesn't. This requires someone to go and do the work, which I'm sure Sergeant Farrar did, because he does every year.
You good, Councilman?
No,
Keep going.
I understand what you're saying, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But if at any particular point in time, that if you can just write a little line that says, okay, here's my new car, this is what I'm putting in it, this is what I'm putting in it, and this is my bottom line for that particular car. Because when I come down, I see the big number here, or small, and I try to put it with the other numbers, as you just said, it doesn't always wash out because.
No, it's not going to. Right, that's absolutely true. Some of these things are, while they're utilized in police vehicles, are not specific to the police vehicle. Other things are, and the cost, depending on the type of vehicle, will vary for the equipment that's purchased for that particular vehicle. But, rule of thumb, like I said before, generally speaking, for a fully outfitted marked vehicle, double the cost of the vehicle, and you get a fully outfitted vehicle. That's about what it costs. So these are about $32,500 a piece. Double it to 65, and you're right about there. That's about the appropriate cost for a fully outfitted police vehicle.
You should put that big bold letters on top of the.
There's ways that we could put this in the budget. There absolutely are. The problem is then we have to break that out when we do it on our end. That's why we do it the way we do it.
I think what Councilman Wright is getting at is kind of what I said before. If we were to say, yeah, we don't want 10 new unmarked, we want fewer, it would be nice to know the total cost of an unmarked vehicle with all the bells and
And that's why I
whistles on
just told you.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but I'm just
It's
saying.
about, yeah.
I'm saying next time it would be good to have that. I'm not saying I'm going to cut any, but that's.
No, I
how we-
understand, and the reason, not to say, but the reason we do it this way is because when this is done, we have to take this budget document and apply it to other things other than a presentation in front of council, and we have to break them out in a certain way that we do for our accounting purposes.
Right,
So that's why it gets done this way.
But you got to know, you got to dumb it down for us.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a dumbing down. I think it's a legitimate question, and that's why I gave you the answer right from the beginning, because that question gets asked every year, and the answer hasn't changed in the probably, 2005. So in the 14 years that I've been doing this for a police department budget, the answer's always been the same. When the cars used to cost $20,000, a totally outfitted one cost $40,000. It's just about double, and that's just because of the increase in costs.
It's the same thing with a new hire. I like to hear not just their salary, but their
Sure.
benefit cost, which I know is hard to estimate.
Yeah,
because you don't know if they're
we
married or
speculate and we draw a conclusion. I mean, the conclusion is it costs X amount of dollars for a family plan health care benefit, and we can generally give you an estimate that's a range between a single with no kids and a family plan with 15 kids, and where the difference is.
Other councilman, Mr. Prasad.
Yeah, just the governor's marijuana taxes, are they going to offset some of this?
I don't know, ask the governor.
So the short answer to that is we don't know what we're getting. We don't know whether it's going to be 2% or 5%. And no one, despite the numerous times I've asked, will tell me it's 2% or 5% of what.
Exactly.
So,
And who gets what?
we're probably, we're looking at $20,000 to maybe $100,000 to the town if we were to say yes to that. So it's not going to
Not a
change
whole
our
lot.
budget. 200,000 absolute max.
Yeah, I am right now. So the one other thing that we haven't discussed is item number 5, since we're on a radio system. Item number 5 is the 911 system itself. As I said, this system went online in 2003. The 911 equipment is now 16 years old, or about to be. 15, I think we went online in July, so it'll be 16 years old. Yeah, there you go. So right. So it's about to be 16 years old, and it needs to be replaced. And obviously, the obsolete 911 equipment is not one that you want to continue to rely on with the inavailability of parts. So that $235,000 will allow us to replace our obsolete 911 equipment. Okay. And I think we got that one all covered. Now, there have been no requests from the police department for additional staffing over and above what our current staffing is.
Unless the mayor wants to give me 10 more cops, would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's despite the school staffing.
Well, so that the school staffing is so the cost of the Class 3 specials is borne by the Board of Education.
Okay.
We covered the cost of their training, and we covered the cost of their uniforms, and obviously we cover the cost of like things like the equipment related to the firearm, the training, and all of those things that were taken into account. But the salary as a whole is being covered by the Board of Education. So,
Chief, I'd love to give you 10 more cops. I just don't want to pay for them.
Now, Can I just ask a question? You switched over to the new exam system.
We did.
And you're going to.
And they're in the police
take up
academy
the
now.
cost. Yeah, and you're paying for it. How
We
is
are.
that compared to the?
So
already
we wound
trained
up
cops?
hiring 9. So there were 9 police officers in total hired. In the original group of officers, 2 were previously certified and were called waiver officers. So they needed to go to the police academy for a very short period of time, 2 weeks, and receive their waiver training before they were qualified to be out on the street. So that was lucky, and that was from the test. And 2 others, after they were hired, but now once we had hit the deadline to get people into the police academy, they withdrew after they accepted our offer of employment. The chief of police was able to recruit, through our recruiting, was able to find 2 more officers that were previously certified, so we got back to the number 9 again. There are 5 in the police academy currently. They're all doing well from what the chief told me last week.
They're all doing extremely well. They're at the top of their class, so we chose wisely.
So, and we got a nice little cross-section. You'll get to meet them when they come back in to get their formal swearing in once they graduate. And then there are the 4 that had previous training. 2 are on the road.
4.
All 4 now. Okay, all 4 of them are on the road.
All 4 with their FTOs out on the road. A couple of them are out there right now.
So, while it does take longer, obviously, and the graduation date is in June for the 5 that are in the police academy, we were able to get a good group of police officers that are doing well. So I'm happy with that, and they got an opportunity to become police officers that otherwise they wouldn't have had the opportunity.
Exactly.
So.
Excellent.
Okay. Any other questions for the police? Chief, Captain, Sergeant, Lieutenant? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Keep us safe.
You're here.
Stay safe out there tomorrow, guys. I hope everybody's safe in the weather tomorrow.
I hope so, too. Hopefully it'll just rain. Otherwise, we may be having discussions about what we're going to do here tomorrow night.
Mrs. Sipowicz.
And before I forget, I will say the same thing to our DPW.
Public Works. You'll get a whole lot of opportunity to talk to Public Works in a little bit.
Recreation, Mrs. Sipowicz.
Maybe we might
Alice,
move
you're
the
up.
bigger ones to the end in the future.
How was your BOE meeting or whatever meeting you were at?
Okay, good.
Pardon? Oh, good.
Help. Recreation. I'm looking. Oh, there it is. On the left hand, 4 or 5 down, very far left side of your of the side, recreation. Last tab on the left there. So we have some discussions, and I have not had an opportunity to discuss some of this with Alice yet, but I want to talk to council a little bit about something that primarily affects employees in the recreation department. As I'm sure you're all aware, the governor signed into law the increase in hourly rates ranging from $10 in July of this year up to $15 an hour several years from now. Most of our, well, I should say, nearly all of our part-time employees and all of our full-time employees make in excess of that amount now. We have some part-time employees, permanent part-time employees, primarily in animal control that make slightly less than $10, and I will be making the appropriate adjustment there. The other place where we have people who make less than $10 an hour is recreation. And most of those, all of them that make less than $10 an hour are seasonal employees performing seasonal functions. And I'm not going to bore you with the wide variety of seasonal functions that there are, but there are some of our seasonal employees that make $10 an hour. The seasonal employees are funded through the trust with monies that come in from fees that are collected. So that adjustment won't be reflected here, even though there is a line, various positions, summer temps at the bottom for $32,000 on their, and that number will remain the same. Alice will just have to work within the confines of that $30,000 for the summer temps to pay them according to state law. So that, I just want to, I want you to know that we're aware of it. Some salaries will be increased to what the state mandatory minimum of $10 is in July when that goes into effect, and we'll make some adjustments to some of our other part-time employees, and it's a relatively small adjustment. Currently, the animal control officers, I think, range from $9.25 to $9.50, $9 to $9.50 an hour, and they'll get a bump when we need to do that to bring them up to the $10 minimum. And that has been, yeah, that's right. And Kathy reminded me, I had her include that in the salary figures, so your salary budgets reflect that, and all of our current totals will allow for that increase to take place.
That doesn't mean it's fewer hours?
No, it just means we'll increase the hourly rate. We don't anticipate reducing the staff or reducing the amount of hours they work. We're just going to increase the dollar amount to reflect the new minimum.
So the job will get done?
Job will get done.
Okay.
That's absolute. The job will get done.
So for those of you at home who keep charts and graphs of this, the council chamber's current temperature is about 52 degrees. Go on.
Feels good. I'm not hot at all. I'm not cold at all either. Feels wonderful down here. That's right.
Yeah.
So there's no request for additional staff in the recreation department, so I'll have you jump to the OE budget, which shows a $52,392 budget, which shows an increase of 0 and a decrease of 0. It shows a flat budget for 2019 from the Recreation Department.
You miss Osipowitz.
Exactly. I don't think that needs much more to be said. The Recreation Department does a tremendous amount of work. A lot of it is funded out of fees that are collected. However, we do have expenses that require us to budget for in her building and in her programs. And I think that Mrs. Osipowitz does a fantastic job of working with the budget that we give her and getting a tremendous amount of work done in what really amounts to a relatively small amount of money, given the size of the township and the amount of programs that we offer. So I kudos to her, and stay for another year. I'm going to ask Alice to stay up here, and we're going to move to some other things unless anybody has any questions on this.
Quick question on.
Sure.
Are we done with all the pickleball courts yet, or is that included in the?
So are we done with all the pickleball courts? So we're going to talk about open space and park capital, and that's why I'm going to ask Alice to stay here, and that's what I'm saying. This is the OE budget, which wouldn't be pickleball.
That's what I figured. I knew I was jumping a little bit, but
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I did hear that groan, so.
Right. Open space is the tab just before capital, and Tara Kenyon, our open space consultant, will come forward. Come forward.
I have trust as the.
That's what it is. It is a trust, open space trust.
Trust me.
And there you have it. The 2018 Open Space Trust Fund, which means we need to change the title of this spreadsheet. I just saw it for the first time. And actually, Carl, why don't you come up here and join the crowd, since you're the one who has to spend it all.
And on your way, if you could turn up the heat.
So what we didn't tell you is that there will be an emergency appropriation of $1.7 million to increase the heat in the council chambers by replacing the AC and heating units on the roof.
Well worth it.
Well worth it. Now, this is a very, very small print on this. I guess it has a lot of things to say, and we had to get it all on one page. So my words of warning, as always, on this. So we call this a budget, and it says Open Space Trust Fund budget, and we always refer to it as a budget. And I guess in a way we budget the amount of money that we spend in certain categories from the Open Space Trust as it relates to park improvements and salaries related to park maintenance and all of those things. But the reality is that money spent out of the trust is not budgeted in the same way that general expenditures are from the current fund. The trust is one of those things that's recurring, and it regenerates, and when money isn't spent. So if we had $5 million budgeted this year and we only spent $3 million, it's just still there in the trust. It doesn't go away. You don't redo it. It very much is different than our general fund budgets that we do annually. So we've tried to fine-tune this document over the years to make it more reflective of what we're spending, and I think that it does a pretty good job of this. The place where it used to reflect big dollar amounts, but then they never got spent, was when we speculated on things that we were going to do every year as it relates to land acquisitions and things like that. The reality is, when we buy a piece of land as open space from the Open Space Trust, whether it be funded as cash or funded as a bond sale acquisition, you have a capital ordinance and you have an acquisition ordinance. And that's how you budget money out of a trust. So, you know, if you don't see big giant numbers in this, like, well, how are we going to buy that $5 million piece of land if it becomes available? It doesn't need to be on this document, and I just think it used to be more confusing than it was worth, so we really don't show that here. What we show is some money being budgeted into the capital improvement fund for open space, and that's the money that would be used as an offset for the 5% down pay on anything that we would bond. Okay?
What's our open space revenue each year?
This year, it's about $4.7 million, right? Oh, good, it went up. It's a little over 5. It's on this document. So Kathy got the updated number, and it is $5,098,000 this year. Where it says total S&W, OE, CIF, and debt service calendar year, when you work that across, that's the number right there, is the budget number for open space tax. You see it, and it's on both lines there. Estimated open space tax.
So before you start, there's a number that has me scratching my head. Reserved for future use is a negative number. I don't understand how that, pardon?
It's a mathematical calculation. It's based on the open space estimated tax, which is the $5 million we just referenced, all the expenses, and then it's simply a mathematical tax number between the difference between the tax and what the expenses are. So
Okay,
we're
so it
saying
just-
here,
it
if we
balances
spend
the budget.
everything, right,
Right. So if we spend every dollar that's on that spreadsheet above it, we would be in a negative for the year based on the amount of taxes collected.
Got it.
Okay. So there's a number of lines there that, again, the ones that generally we pay attention to are the full-time salary budgets, which is the very first line at the top of the spreadsheet. The full-time salary budgets being charged to the Open Space Trust this year is $381,099. It was, yeah, no. 388, yeah, that's what I said. That's 381,099. Okay, it's 299. I missed $200. That's the number I read. 381, 388. Okay. Oh, that was year-to-date. I apologize. The year-to-date was 381,099. The budget request is 388,296. Oh, good Lord. Make it bigger.
So that's
numbers.
annualized.
Huh?
That's annualized then.
Yeah, no, so what that is so that $388,296 is the employees that are currently in the park maintenance department of Public Works. There are there's a foreman and 9 employees, 10 total, right? And of those 9, so the foreman and 7 of those employees are paid 10 months a year out of the Open Space Trust and 2 months out of the year out of the general fund. And 2 of the employees are paid 100% out of the trust. And that's those salaries, and we know what those salaries are. That's add them all up, and that's what that number is. So that's why it's right at, I mean, what's it? It's at 100%. It was at 100% for 2018, and that's why, because that's a known number. So that's how it gets budgeted. The next line at $64,500 is the part-time salaries. Those are our seasonal employees who are charged to the trust, working on open space, generally college kids, but sometimes not. Most of the time, yes. And they work on all the open space properties, really pretty much from May through, some of them, actually, we had them into October, and we had them, some come back on break. So whenever we can get them out there to utilize those funds for the seasonal workers. And then the overtime at $25,000, seems that Mr. Houck went a little over in 2018. We'll talk about that offline, just a tad bit. Couple $100.
Less than 1%.
Less than that's all right. Still, you got to hold them to a number there, Councilman. No, that $25,000 is to enable our public works employees to work on weekends, to do work on the open space properties that otherwise it doesn't get done during the week. Then you run into the rest of them are the general operating costs of the parks maintenance operation through the course of the year, as well as the costs associated with things like professional services, legal services, the contract for Tara Kenyon. Those are all included in those in the following lines of the budget that reflect the typical budget of a department. Not unlike other.
And a lot of appraisals in
a lot of appraisals.
Professional and consulting.
Absolutely. A lot of appraisals because a lot of acquisitions, especially last year, there were a lot of appraisals because we had a number of acquisitions, both as fee simple acquisitions and development acquisitions. Okay. So, any questions so far?
So Ms. Kenyon's salary is on.
It is.
Not on.
Professional consulting services, 028, correct. It's among other services within that, yes.
Worth that, though.
She is worth that much. If if she worked the number of hours that would be required, we would have even better, but unfortunately we have to draw a line somewhere. I think that in general, and I think that you would hear this if you were to ask the Open Space Advisory Committee as well, we made a fantastic choice in our open space consultant, and we're exceptionally happy with the services that she provided in 2018. We got a lot of work done last year, and since I'm handing out the praise where I think it's warranted in that particular case, I handed it out to the Open Space Advisory Committee, and I will tell all of you, and I think that you've seen some of her work firsthand in presentations made to this body, and you've seen the acquisitions that we've made in the previous, in this past year, that were the fruits of her labor. So I'm very happy, and I think you should be as well.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
069, DPW landscaping parts. I thought are those not the salaries? And
no, there's no salaries at all on that.
What is that?
That's the work.
I don't understand. The work sounds like salaries.
No, that's all. That's all. That's the. That's nice. All right. Yes, I'm sorry. Not the labor. All of the things that get done in the park. All of the work. All the material. The stone. The grass. The mulch. That's the DPW landscape. That's the stuff that they use to fix the parks and. And
then line 071.
Electricity and streetlights. Mm-hmm.
Taking a jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big jump.
Middlebush Park.
It's the electric bill at Middlebush Park.
50,000.
How
We have 3 bills that we get from PSE&G that are specifically Middle Bush Park for the electric concession stand and the sports lighting and
It's
stuff.
actually broken down into 3 bills?
Yep.
Every year, or just
Every year?
every
Every
year?
month,
No,
right?
it just started,
Well, yeah.
it jumped up 2 years ago when we installed the stuff.
So, I'm sorry, because you opened a door up here, so curiously, is it the concession stand, just in general, or the fields that's a big chunk of that 50,000?
The fields.
Okay, and although we've had it for a few years, we're just kind of seeing now, based on your calculation going forward?
No, the township was eating the bill before.
Well, okay, that's what I'm trying to find out.
In 18, identified that there were, I'm sorry. In 18, we identified that there were 3 bills that were being billed to us that we didn't realize were open space for Middle Bush Park.
Thank you, okay, now I'm understanding.
So you'll see it in the actual expenses in 18, so we then had to budget it for 19.
I assume the same thing happened with the next line, water and sewer?
Yep. Well, the irrigation for the yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So it's being put in the right category. It's not necessarily that
Correct.
it's
You were paying it,
more or
you just
less.
weren't paying it
It's
from
just-
here, and it wasn't being paid as a park maintenance cost, it was being paid as part of the public service bill by the township.
Okay.
Insurance and liability is going up.
Is that also because of the?
That's the flood insurance bill for, is it
Van Wickle.
They reassigned it to being a flood zone.
So we skirted it for a while, but we finally got hit with the true bill on our flood insurance, and that's what the flood insurance went up to.
And you can see it went from $1,950 a year. Last year, it went up to $7,501. And our engineer, Scott Thomas, did go in and evaluate whether it was legit or we could appeal it, and he verified that it's legit.
Elevations are elevations,
So
it's
it's-
kind of hard to fudge them.
Maybe we could build a wall.
And just for the sake of people, at home, the home
The
you're
Van
talking
Wickle
about
house
one
is
of
the
our
Meadows House along the river off of Easton Avenue by DeMotley.
by Rutgers Prep, one
Yep.
of our oldest and I'm going to say most known historic sites that unfortunately is almost below canal level. Okay, but as much as that's a big increase, if it keeps that safe, so to speak, or us safe, liability.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out, since you like to ask, the water and sewer increase, it's
Yes.
only $9 per connection that went up this year for sewer. So it is not sewer.
It's the water,
It's the
it's
water.
the irrigation of the fields at Middle Bush Park.
But
I
this
just
was
wanna
a wet
clarify that.
year.
And in previous years, you didn't have a water meter, and now you do.
Well, get rid of that.
No
Tell,
worries.
tell the water department,
No,
oh
no,
wait,
no.
that's you too.
No, we pay for it either way.
You pay for it either way, exactly.
Do we have an excess of mulch still for this year, or we did go all that out finally?
All right, sorry.
Okay.
Any other questions on the open space estimate?
All right, now, Carl, help me out here. Capital for the parks.
It's easier than right in open
Yeah, that's where I'm sort of going.
Like 4 pages later?
Like 4 pages later, is that what it is?
Later. Oh,
No,
wait, no.
it's the next one.
I have,
Oh, it depends which one
I
you're
have
talking
capital requests, open space, and I have open space capital requests, two different sheets.
Just noticed that.
Then you have technical, and you have the list of itemized complaints.
Complaints?
Yeah, I got a few complaints.
These
That's
two
okay.
pages are essentially the same.
Yeah.
They are.
I wanted to make sure that you could find them as easily as possible.
So sometimes there's duplication of effort here. But the open space capital request for 2019. Okay. The first is on that list is technology, park and open space security cameras. We're looking to budget $50,000 for cameras in the parks.
On this one. Okay.
So currently, there are 2 parks that have cameras, Castleton Park and the Griggstown Grasslands Preserve. Camera went up online, I guess, late last week, early this week? Late last week.
Very late, because they had to take it down.
Right, it had a problem with the SIM card, it had to come down and go back up again. That's a solar-powered camera. So,
Mr. Mayor, you should see the emails I've been getting about that, and
I
be
saw
glad you aren't.
I saw them, and I'm glad they went to you.
so the next park that would be done is Naaman Williams Park. So the costs associated with this would be for more than one camera, number one, and the cost for Naaman Williams Park is a little less than costs associated with some other parks because there's power at Naaman Williams Park, and we don't need to go solar, which obviously adds a considerable amount of cost. So Naaman Williams Park will be next, and that's what this money is budgeted for.
Hardwire is cheaper.
Hardwire is cheaper, no doubt about it, Councilman, no doubt about it. So moving on to general improvement capital, I want to focus on the first one, probably more than anything else, Williams Park pool and filtration upgrades. So the direction has already been given, and I believe it was advertised, correct, Carl? Yeah. So it's advertised now. So again, I go back to my little tutorial on budgeting and spending and trust money spending. I believe on tomorrow night's council agenda is the introduction of the capital ordinance to pay for the pool fix that needs to be done that was identified last year that kept us from keeping the pool open last year. I've given the Public Works Department instruction and the Purchasing Department instruction that I want this pool finished by Memorial Day so that it can open for the summer on time like it should and will be able to remain open through the summer without any issues. So that bid went out, I believe, on Friday, was advertised. It was advertised on Friday, so it's out to bid now. You have a capital ordinance on your agenda for tomorrow's meeting to be introduced and adopted at the second meeting of February, and we'll be able to award this contract in March, and we'll be able to have this work done by Memorial Day. So, Mr. Houck, you're on the hot seat. Got to be a swimming pool for Memorial Day. So that's the plan. So while it's here, again, you know, we can get this work done at the pace that we need to get it done, and that needs to be done at a quick pace. The next is Bascom Park, the playground equipment. Bascom Park's playground equipment is end of life and no longer compliant with ADA. And the National Playground Institute or Association. So that is the replacement of all of the playground equipment at Bascom Park for $260,000. Delar Park has bigger playground equipment, and so they're in the same position, and that's at $340,000.
So these are the jungle gyms and those kinds
all of that playground equipment, the tot lot equipment and everything.
Yeah, and the rubber padding.
And all of that goes along with this cost, correct? It allows for the material for the ground, right. Middlebush Park playground equipment, Carl, and I'm not going to go to the subpage, but.
This is if you're looking at it from the parking lot, to the right of the existing playground equipment. There were some other types of structures that basically rusted out, and there's nothing there now. This is to replace and recreate an area separate for different types of.
Right. So for those of you who remember, there was playground equipment that was installed in Middlebush Park when the skate park went in. That's this equipment that was end of life and became rusted and unsafe and had to be removed. And this is to replace that equipment, not equipment that was installed as part of the build out of Middlebush Park when the additional tot lot equipment went in. Okay. Next.
So on the Middlebush Park improvements, are we talking about improving the surface of the skate park?
That was done.
That was done last year.
That was done 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's done 2 years ago.
So it's not asphalt anymore, it's nice and smooth?
It's they sealed it. And they redid the ramps.
Okay, good.
The next is bleacher replacement at Williams and Inman Park for $45,000. Again, this is just replacing equipment that's already there. It's no longer serviceable. Inman Park shelter replacement. Alice, you want to talk on that one?
It's over 20 years old. Will be in need of roof repair. Eventually going to have problems with the support structure, so it's due for replacement.
And this is where they have their summer programs.
Which one is that? Because I remember us doing.
Yeah.
So which one is this?
This is the one by the maintenance garage, right? By where the new
But
we
I don't know,
put
but
it.
structurally, these things have a more than a 15, 20-year life. I mean,
If you'd like to go out and inspect it,
No,
Councilman,
I'm
taking the word of the people who went out and inspected and said it needed to be replaced.
well, but I'm hearing down the road structurally. I mean, is it in danger? Is it in dangerous situation? Because I'm hearing that there's some problems with the roof, and eventually it will have structural.
The structure.
I mean, 60,000 is for basically owning. I know we have our important programs, but
The structure is end of life. It
Okay.
needs to come down and needs to be replaced completely.
okay, I may have misinterpreted what
yeah,
I heard.
similar- similar
That eventually, I heard that
structure.
eventually would have
Similar metal type structures that we've done at Middlebush Park and replaced. Again, you referenced the tennis courts, what I call the lean-tos. Yeah.
Okay, and that's one of the larger ones too. Is that why?
Inman, not the larger, but it is, average size. Middlebush is like a double of Inman's. And that was over $100,000 in front of the concession stand.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, and they're less priced. There's smaller ones you see, like the pocket parks, where these are more sizable and can handle more people underneath.
Correct.
All right.
And we're going to size it to reuse the existing concrete pad.
So this is the one near Leap Road?
This is the one before you walk over the
By
bridge.
Loop Lane?
Loop Lane, yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. By the maintenance garage in the middle of the park.
Yeah, okay, I see it. Okay.
Okay. And then just continuing, so there we had an identified action plan for ADA accessibility in all our parks that was done several years ago that we budgeted $100,000 to make those improvements in the park annually to bring our parks up to code. That's just a continuation of an ongoing plan implementation. Miscellaneous park site amenities, $50,000. That is just, again, money that we put as, we identify as a number to do things like when a picnic bench breaks and
okay.
things like that. Just general improvements to the park of a capital nature. Middlebush Park Nature Trail, I should say natural trail and not a nature trail, but a natural trail phase 2.
What's the difference?
Well, no, there is a difference. It's not really, so, and to call it a trail, I don't even know that we'll call it a trail. It's a natural play area in Middlebush Park. This is the area that was, kind of has some water features and things like that, that is in the area between the parking lot that serves the 2 synthetic turf fields and DeMott Lane in that area. That was originally an idea that Fran Varicali, our former consultant, came up with, and has been broken down into 2 phases to be built out. So we're in phase 2.
Walking trail.
And it's got natural things for kids to play with, So whether it's playing in the sand or playing in the water, it's a natural play area. And 10 big belly garbage cans.
They work.
They work.
They work very well.
They work.
Carl was against them originally.
He was, remember? I know. I take great pleasure in the fact that he admits that they work now.
So,
He likes the emails.
For $6,000 a can, they better work.
But they provide not only increased amount of time between emptying, but also the notification when they're full, so that we don't have that problem with overflowing cans. And we're just rolling them out in all of the parks as we buy them. So now it's gone beyond just where we originally started with a small number. Now we just put them in all the parks, and it's just it makes for more efficient trash collection, if nothing else. with
And
the
it all
compaction.
started with Kingston.
It did, and Carl still objected to it. He did. He admits it. Every once in a while, he says he was wrong. Anyway, 2 Bobcat mowers to replace end-of-life mowers for the parks, and landscape trailer end-of-life to transport said Bobcat mowers. Telephone pole installation. Let's talk about this, because there has been some discussion elsewhere about this as well. So, as you may or may not know, the Public Service Electric and Gas has basically shut us down as far as the installation of banners and the like crossing roads throughout the town, and not just here in Franklin Township, but Public Service has taken a hardline approach to those things strung across public roadways that come within, how many feet, Carl? 2? 10 feet? 10 feet of their secondaries and primaries? Yeah. 10 feet, which basically precludes us from using any utility pole that has a power line attached to it, which is what we had always used. So the alternative to doing that, if we're going to hang banners or holiday decorations or anything of the like across a public road, is to install our own poles. The cost for pole installation is about $4,500 per pole. So in this budget, you see there's $18,000 earmarked for pole installation. That would allow for 2 sets, 4 poles, so 2 sets. Well, obviously you need a pole on each side of the road. The thought was, when we proposed this, was that 2 sets would be done out of open space funds, because there are open space functions that utilize these, hanging banners every year. 2 would utilize Hamilton Street funds, because Hamilton Street utilizes these through the year periodically for functions in the Hamilton Street Business District. And 2 sets would be funded out of municipal funds, because we, as a municipal government, utilize these and hang banners at various times through the year as well. I understand that Hamilton Street had an issue with this, and so Hamilton Street certainly has the right to have issue with it. Council can certainly make a decision that they feel otherwise. However, we can also eliminate the Hamilton Street poles altogether and utilize open space and municipal funds to put up 2 sets, or I should say 4 sets elsewhere other than Hamilton Street.
So just to make sure it's clear, on Hamilton, Carl was Councilman Wright was there. I assume, or the executive director filled you in on.
He did.
It was a lengthy discussion, and just
to
make sure I'm on the same page with you and the rest of the council. Hamilton had a long discussion. Basically, in summary, they felt, and there's varying opinions, but basically felt that Hamilton needed at least 2 sets actually they wanted 3, but I think they determined it might be more practical to finally find practical spaces for 2. But ultimately, that they would not mind contributing, and felt that, was, since some of it was isolated to specific investment district events and not for the whole town, that they should pay part of it, but that because the township would utilize for Franklin Day, 4th of July, whatever, hopefully a lot of things, 1 or 2 of the sets that hope to go in the district, that the town they were asking the town that they would contribute. My understanding was for 2 poles, and the town would pay for at least 2 more, and maybe 4 if they could find the sets. So
you hit the nail on the head. What you just said is exactly how it was. So this is why I said we need to have a discussion now. Yeah, no. So I could not argue with anything that you just said, and I couldn't argue with the Hamilton Street Advisory Board's position on this. the issue here is the manner in which we fund these things. I think that it would be unfair to expect open space to pay for more than what was proposed here.
Yeah, and just so that,
no one said that they should. I'm just speaking my piece
wanna
now,
be clear.
Councilman, so let me
Okay.
talk. I don't think that it would be fair to expect open space to fund, if we were going to put up 6, I think that 1/3 of the cost being funded out of open space is the maximum that we should expect open space to pay. Likewise, I think that from the Hamilton Street business owner's point of view, I understand that there may not be as many events that have banners on in the Hamilton Street Business District than maybe some other groups like the Township with, or the Farmers Market or things like that. But the reason why this all came to be is because Hamilton Street wanted to hang holiday decorations, which they can't have unless these poles go up. So when I made the suggestion that Hamilton Street foot the bill for 1/3, meaning 2, that was my thought here. If council wants to discuss this, and we certainly don't need a final answer tonight. We will need a final answer when we do the budget. If there's this desire to have Hamilton Street fund only one set, meaning 2 poles, $9,000, and the township budgets in the general capital budget to pick up the slack there in the regular municipal budget, we can certainly shift that from Hamilton Street to the general capital budget and still fund 6 sets, like we had proposed, 2 on Hamilton Street, and then the other 4 at the various locations where we generally put them up. I mean, it's not hard. We put one up on Elizabeth Avenue, we put one up on South Middlebush Road, we put one up on DeMott Lane, and we put one up on Amwell Road. Those 4 locations are covered, and then the 2 on Hamilton Street make 6. If you all want to think about it, and we're going to have another budget hearing, and you can let me know and I'll remember to ask you all what your thoughts are. If you want to give it some thought, if you want to talk to people that are involved in this process, that's fine.
What's the Hamilton Street budget?
I don't have it in front of
So
me.
there's no assessment this year.
Right.
Generally speaking, the budget's in the $70,000 range, give or take. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Anne Marie, do you remember what it is? I don't know. That's all. It's in the $70,000 range.
And one set is $9,000.
One set is
Yeah.
$9,000.
So-
Yes, sir.
And just to add, I was going to give a report, not going to give the whole report now, but just as it relates to this budget item, Councilman Wright was there, I think Councilwoman Pruitt, Councilwoman Francois, I think all 4 of our
Yes, all
representatives.
4 you were all there.
And after the discussion, and it was a very productive discussion, I believe the unanimous, we supported what they unanimously requested, so I don't want to speak for them, and ultimately, we don't have to decide tonight, but I think four members already were.
What was their request?
Their request was that they fund 1 set, and that 1 or 2 more sets be funded by the township.
Exactly.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Does anyone else have an opinion?
Where would they be on Hamilton Street?
So there would be one on the approach in the area of Millstone Road coming in from Franklin Boulevard right at the beginning of the business district, and then there would be another one at the far end of the business district down in the area of Hawthorne Drive and in that general area where the business district begins. And if a third one was going to go up, it would be in the middle near Community Firehouse, John's Plaza, in that general vicinity.
Yep.
And
they'd be able to be,
and
they'd be able to be utilized because
By
that
any
really
group.
is the gateway of
Sure.
Franklin and the business district. So we would hope that the town would really benefit by.
There's a number of, every group utilizes those locations and could use all 3 on Hamilton.
That's where, I'm sorry, Councilman
For
Chase.
practical purposes, there were 4 council members at the Hamilton Street who agreed with it. I agreed with it. We now have 5 council.
So we don't need to talk anymore. I'll just shuffle it around in the budget.
Unless there's someone who is against it who would want to convince others otherwise.
No,
I think we're good.
No, I just had a comment.
Sure.
We ought to also look at Eastern Avenue, near the business district?
There is no place on Easton Avenue to put banners. It's a 4-lane highway, and the county will not permit it.
Okay, and the same thing applies to 27?
The state of New Jersey is very difficult about it as well, and the county will permit us to do it on county roads. They've already told us that they'll permit us to do it, but I think that the Department of Transportation will have an issue with it on the state highway. They don't generally issue the permits to begin with. They did allow them down in Kingston at one time, but anywhere else on the highway, they have not.
Okay.
Quick question, is this like, we want to get this all done and it's basically one phase? We're not talking about doing these in the future? Okay.
There's probably some small economy of scale. I don't know how much, but a small economy of scale, and then we go out and we award a contract to one company to go out and drill whatever 12 holes.
It's not like we want to do what 6 or 8 sets this year, and then we want.
No, I don't. I think that this would probably be we would probably be done. This would be it.
What is that other noise I keep
That would be your other councilwoman on the phone.
Oh, hi, Crystal.
What?
There was just some extraneous noise that was acting up with my ADD. We're fine.
Okay, so
Mr. Connell, if you wanted to grab a budget book, you could follow along.
so that is the pole installation. Moving on.
Councilman Chase has a question.
Yes, sir.
You said that PSE&G won't allow banners within 10 feet of their lines?
Within 10 feet of the secondary or primary lines, yes.
On their pole.
On their pole.
Vertically?
On their pole.
So vertically on their pole, vertically.
And you also have to meet the 18-foot center line
Off the
clearance
road.
hang of the banner.
Okay.
And then the other problem is when you have poles on either side of the road, and so especially on Hamilton Street where we want electricity for the holiday decorations, that means there's a secondary that runs from from one pole to the other, and we need 10 feet of separation between the banner and that secondary that's running between the two poles perpendicular to the road, and then you need 18 feet of clearance from the road to the bottom of the banner. You can't do that math. You know that negative number that you talked about in the budget? That's what you get. You get a negative number. It's a negative banner. It doesn't work out.
I was just afraid that 10 feet from their lines would preclude even banners on our poles.
No, it's if it's on our pole, then it's on our pole. It's when it's on their pole that their law and their rules. Their law rules. Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you. Moving on. Charging stations for electronic devices for parks, $15,000. So this was something that there's been some discussion about, and I think it's very popular. Solar charging stations where people can, while their kids are playing soccer or playing on the playground, they can plug in their cell phone so that they don't lose their charge. And it's a very popular thing, and it would be a nice amenity for those parks that get frequent visitors to the playground areas.
I thought you were talking about Ted's car.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that too. That's a grant application that you'll see tomorrow on your agenda.
Okay.
And that's for car charging stations in Middlebush Park, and where do we say Middlebush and where else? Just Middlebush right now, right? Just Middlebush right now, right?
And we're going to charge for that, right?
Nope, free of charge. Consolata synthetic turf cricket pitch. So there is a cricket pitch on the front lawn of the front building of Consolata right now. Now we're moving forward and very close to sealing the deal with the Board of Education to do this land swap. That land will remain ours, and since it already has the cricket pitch there, and it takes very little work to get this ready to play, we thought that the best bet right now would to go to the low-maintenance synthetic turf pitch like we did at Weston, and get the field ready to be used for the season.
And it makes a general purpose for other sports.
And it makes it general purpose if they want to have soccer practice there as well, absolutely. And it doesn't interfere because it's not the clay pitch. And it requires far less maintenance, far less maintenance. Yes,
And
as,
no
as,
need for
as the
rotation.
man in charge of maintenance down there is very thankful for the idea of synthetic turf ones. Next is Castleton pickleball surface upgrades. That's the one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, that's converting tennis courts to pickleball courts.
No, they've been
Not
converted.
converting.
That's the email.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the park.
Yep.
Yep, okay. I didn't add that. That was there before, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are the ones we did maybe 5 years ago, and we're resurfacing them?
The tennis courts. Yes. Yep.
When I say we do, we
I don't even know if it was that long
No, we
ago.
re- we
Might,
re-
might even be less than that.
we redid them, and then we striped them with pickleball like the year later because they were do they get used for pickleball or mostly pickleball? But you can use them for both. I mean, you can play tennis and pickleball now.
There's, the pickleball players are really taking it over and have dominated use of the court. So that's really being used primarily for pickleball and not for tennis. So there's the 2 tennis courts with the lines for both sports, but it would mean really converting them into truly just pickleball and getting 4 courts there for pickleball.
Wait a minute, now I'm confused. We have 2 tennis courts there. They're lined for tennis and pickleball.
Yeah.
And we're resurfacing this so they can continue to be played for pickle or tennis.
Pickleball.
Well, what?
Yeah, it's a color coding.
Well, why are we eliminating all tennis and not just one pickleball? Fine, I'm fine. No issue with pickleball, but
Because the demand is overwhelming for pickleball versus tennis. That's the, so when,
if you
so
can
you
have
try
it,
to meet
but
the
if you
demand.
can have it lined for if you have 2 courts and you can have one, if there's so much, things come and go in trends. But if you have so many people out there playing pickle, can you have one court be specifically pickleball? But if they could be lined for both, have the other one so it's lined for both for people.
Yeah, so what Alice said is that there are 6 tennis courts at Inman.
How many pickleball?
They're all able to be played right now and not being converted to solely pickleball. There's
Right,
six.
I understand, but that's
But
Inman.
there's a
It's 3
waiting
miles
list
away.
to play on these courts. So, Councilman, I will tell you that I will refer all of the people who have requested these be converted to pickleball to you, and you will
I'm getting
feel
the
free.
information
But
now.
I'm trying to meet the demand of the public that is requesting these be made into pickleball courts. And we are getting no demand for tennis courts.
Jim, when I went down to Inman to go meet with some of the pickleball players the one day, there was at least 2 to 3 people deep to waiting to play.
I'm not against pickleball. I just didn't want to.
Right. No.
Wait, let me be clear. We could build as many.
What I'm
Councilman,
saying is, what I'm saying though is that there
understand what
was
you're
there was not as much of a demand for the tennis courts. So in this case, we're taking what, 2 tennis courts out of. We're basically taking 2 tennis courts out of commission when Inman didn't even eat all the ones they left at Inman for tennis.
So no, and I'm understanding that. What I'm saying is instead of taking them all from one park and leaving 0. So I'm sorry, Alice. So you got 6 courts at Inman, and they are right now set up to play what?
It's 6 for tennis, 4 of them are for pickleball, and 2 of them are also lined for junior tennis courts. So.
Okay, so I'm not saying don't do the amount of pickleball that you guys have estimated will help fulfill the need. What I'm saying is if you have parks that have multiple tennis capability, tennis and pickleball, and you have a park that has such limited, to totally exclude one from one park, I mean, it all would still come out the same. I'm just saying switch one so that you can use it for both sports. If you could still use pickleball, what is the harm of having some stripes so in the entire park somebody could play tennis if they wanted?
I think as Bob was keep pace with the demand for pickleball.
The difference is you can take 2 tennis courts and make 4 pickleball courts to meet the demand. It's not a question of, so Right now, it's 2 tennis courts that can be used as 2 pickleball courts. We can take that same space and make 4 pickleball courts out of it and begin to start to meet the demand that we have for these facilities that we're not meeting now.
And am I correct, isn't just lines, it's nets are different?
It's the nets and nets, well, yeah, especially when you're making 4 out of 2.
And also, you don't want to impact Inman, where they might, if I'm not mistaken, don't they do, we do big lessons?
That's where we hold our tennis program, yes.
Sorry, so that's what I want to emphasize, is that we don't want to take anything away from there, because then you're turning away students that are.
And we'll also be installing 2 tennis courts at Catalpa when that's built as well.
Well, maybe we ought to rethink that.
They're going to be 2 and 2. They're going to be, right now they were proposed to be 2 tennis courts with the ability to use them as 2 pickleball courts.
But we also don't want to go too crazy, because I did talk to residents at Canal Walk, and they just installed. I'm fully on board with the Castleton ones. It's because there's other communities. Canal Walk did install them, so I think this should meet the need a little. It's never going to meet the.
Well, no, the problem is that it only meets the need of those people who live in Canal Walk.
Correct. No,
it doesn't meet the need of every other resident in the town who doesn't have access to Canal Walk's facilities.
Correct. I'm not saying that's going to take away our demand, because again, everybody wants to play at the same time and be able to play. So I think and I'm sure you've done the study, you've done your research to know that there's probably very little demand for tennis at Castleton, which is why you chose there to convert it. I'm sure you.
Well, I guess what I'm concerned about is just in general. Again, I don't want to be getting the complaints from pickleball people. There's no exact policy or law, but you have little local neighborhood pocket parks, neighborhood parks, whatever you want to call them. They are really, at least in my mind, and I think most of the council, supposed to be first and foremost for the needs of the general area that would be in the.
I see where you're going, Councilman, and I'm going to say you're going down a slippery slope there.
What?
They're township parks. They're available for all residents, regardless of whether they live in the neighborhood or not. I understand. No, I understand what you're saying.
You're twisting what I'm saying.
No, I'm not twisting anything.
So,
you're saying that they're neighborhood parks and they're intended first and foremost for the people who live in those neighborhoods.
No.
I'm saying that as a township manager, I'm trying to meet the needs of the people who live in this town who have expressed those concerns and those demands and those needs. And the truth is, the tennis courts are sorely underutilized as tennis courts, and there's an incredible demand for this sport. And we're trying to meet that need by just simply changing this court over to that would meet that need.
So
that's it.
It's 8 after 9 for practical purposes. Do you have a closing statement?
Yeah, I'll just wrap
Mr.
it.
Vasanelli?
So
Closing statement from Mr. Vasanelli.
my manager jumped in, but basically I was trying to understand whether or not the requests are coming, since you're getting them all, from people that live in a half mile of Castleton, or it's where you're just trying to get any space you can because there's such a high demand.
Finding space. It's finding space because of the demand, and I don't know where all the, specifically where the people live who are playing pickleball. I just know that, I don't know if it was just Canal Walk, but another community had added pickleball courts, and then the next thing you know, there's not enough pickleball courts. So it's just a very popular sport that I just see, same as with cricket,
So
the demand continuing to increase.
We're taking 2 tennis courts. You'll let us know if there's demand or if people start complaining about lack of tennis courts. Can we move on?
Very good.
Can I just?
All right, and of course, the more pickleball courts will help us brine our roads.
Absolutely, because it's
moving on.
pickle. Councilwoman.
Councilwoman. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
As much as I love just hearing the word pickle over and over again the past 15 minutes, I do have a question. Like, I know you're talking about it being a really popular thing now, but and I don't know if this is something you can actually plan for, but like my only pause, or one of my pauses about like converting stuff for this particular sport is like, what do we do when it's not popular anymore?
Well, we do what we did when that particular court no longer became popular, when it was a roller hockey rink, and we converted it to tennis courts. We we adopt the use when the demand is no longer being met by the facility that's in place. It used to be a tennis court. It wasn't popular. It became a roller hockey rink. It wasn't popular. It became tennis courts again. It's still not being, it's being underutilized, so now we're going to move it to pickleball, which we're being assured by the demand that currently exists that it will get play. That's what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I understand there are 2 Weston Canal Park structures.
There are 2 Weston Park shade structures. This is for the 2 cricket pitches at the Weston Road cricket pitch facilities. This will give the people who are participating in cricket at those fields, and they're far apart, so they need to have 2. These are smaller structures than the ones we had talked about earlier that exist at some of our parks, but it gives the team someplace, especially during the summer, to escape the sun from beating down on them while they are waiting to play. So that's what that is. And then Catalpa Park installation. Woo-hoo! Yes, that's got 6 zeros. So the the estimated cost of construction for all phases of Catalpa, based on our most current discussions with the engineers who have designed it, is $5 million. That's roughly about where we thought it was going to go, maybe a little less, but we've changed some things and built another bridge and some other things that got realigned, and this is where we're looking at a total cost for build-out at $5 million.
Have the permits showed up yet?
Not yet, no. We haven't gotten the permits from DEP, but it's not that we don't anticipate them, that we'll get them or that there's going to be a problem. It's just a typical delay, or the length of time that it takes the DEP to process anything, which is a long time.
Could it prevent our going out to bid in time for construction to start this year?
I'm hoping not, but it could. It certainly is not beyond the realm of possibilities that this might have to wait until spring of 2020 to begin construction, based on the delays that we've experienced with this permit process. That is certainly possible, yes.
Are we going to have a rain garden there?
We are. We're going to have a rain garden and a community garden, both.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Are you going to have any, now seriously, are you having
yes, there's
pickleball
2,
or tennis
so
down
there's 2 tennis courts there that are being proposed as 2 tennis court / pickleball courts there, because there are no other municipal tennis courts anywhere near there. Right. Whereas Inman Park is less than a mile as the crow flies from Castleton Park. Right.
Not say the word pickle anymore.
I feel like I'm in a pickle.
Moving on.
Just for the record, Councilman, I don't play pickleball. I like tennis. I took tennis lessons. Anyway, moving on.
An advantage when playing tennis.
That is the end of the open space capital requests. Are there any other questions or comments about the open space budget or capital budget? Then I'm gonna relieve of her need to be here, both Tara and Alice. Thank you both.
Come on down, Mr. Lupo.
Thank you. Mr. Lupo's under the word UCC, uniform. Oh, thank you. Uniform. Actually, it doesn't say. It says Uniform Construction Code. It doesn't just. They didn't shortchange you there, Vince. It says Uniform Construction Code.
Oh, Tara and Alice.
Yeah.
Tara and Alice, thank you for all you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. This should be quick, and I apologize, Vince. I would have gotten you out of here earlier because Mr. Lupo brings to you today no request for additional personnel and a flat budget. Yeah. So I don't know that there needs to be a tremendous amount of discussion here. But yes.
Done before I find it.
Where's this tab?
His tab is under Uniform Construction Code. It would be on the right side, about 3 rows deep. Yeah, 3rd row deep. Uniform Construction Code.
Second tab, 3rd row.
So Mr. Lupo's budget for Uniform Construction Code last year was $350,900, and it is proposed at $350,900 again this year. just basically indicating that he feels he can continue to do the job necessary in the construction code office without an increase in the budget, which is always a good thing. We like when that happens.
Is he buying any electric cars?
So we'll get to the capital budget. He did. He bought, how many did Carl? 5 last year, right? All right, so bought 5 last year, and 5 again this year, and 5 again this year.
Are those 5 last year in use?
So they were assigned to departments today, actually. We worked out a plan right now to charge them at the charging station that was installed at the Public Works garage with a loaner car there to get people back and forth, because obviously, given the weather, we weren't able to finish the parking lot next to Mr. Lupo's wing over there on the animal shelter side. To get the charging stations. The charging stations are there, but the pavement wasn't able to go in time to beat the winter. So we can't charge the cars on those charging stations right now. So in the meantime, while those cars will be utilized by inspectors, they'll be charged down at the Public Works garage as needed. And if we need to jump them onto the charging port outside my office, we can do that on the overnight. For 2 vehicles there, so we'll be able to. So they went into service yesterday.
When I pulled in tonight, there was somebody parking there not charging.
So write her the ticket now. Where's the police department when you need them? She admitted to it. No, so blame her. So. The other problem that the weather gave us was striping them with the green stripes that identify them as electric vehicle charging parking spots to keep people from parking. But I will say this, that since that charger went online, and obviously it's right outside my office, so I see it constantly, there is generally a vehicle charging from when I get to work at around 8 o'clock in the morning till whenever it is that I leave, whether it's a normal day or a night like tonight where I leave late. Generally, when it's late, it's Councilman Chase's vehicle parked there. But, some of you wondered about the cost. And I know that there's been discussion. And so the cost to the people who utilize that is 0. We're not charging for the utilization of those charging stations in the municipal lot. The charges are limited to 2 hours. The computer is set to limit them to 2 hours of charge. Our first full month was January, and it was online for the entire month of January, and it was utilized daily for the whole month of January. And we get a report from the company, and it was $50 worth of electricity. So that's a $600 annual service to the general public. It would cost us about that much money, if not more, to become a member of the network that allows for them to collect the fees and pay us back. I think that in general, that's a wonderful service to provide to people, and I would not recommend changing that.
I think it's part of our civic duty to try to promote.
I agree, and just by what I see of the usage, clearly there are a number of people who are operating either hybrid or fully electric vehicles, and I see cars come and go all day. Somebody's pulling in there and plugging in, so it's a great thing.
Put them in wherever we.
And that's why we're proposing them for parks and things like that. And there's when you see the parking lot that's proposed to be built at the youth center on Lewis Street includes electric vehicle charging stations. So we're just going to begin to include them. Catalpa will have them included in the construction of the park.
Is the plan to have them free, roll out a few dozen? I'm all for the one here not charging.
Generally, here it will probably have the most use of any location where we put them, because they're on from 7:30, I believe, Carl, we turned them on, 7 or 7:30? 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. they're on.
It says they're on till 11.
So that's what I thought, 11.
But
See?
you mean I'm not getting a charge anymore because we're 2 hours and 20
You're
minutes
done.
into
You're
this
topped
meeting?
off. You need to go unplug and plug it back in real quick.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm glad I was able to be here to participate. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that when you put them in parks, obviously they're not used to the length that they are for people who come here because that we're open. You know, the library closes at 9 or 10 o'clock or whatever it is. So I still think, though, that, you know, we can reevaluate the more we plug in, and plug in, no pun intended. But I think that at this point, if we could put in a couple more, the relative cost to the just the service that we're providing, and clearly it's a popular service.
What about security? Is there anything?
Hey, you can't pull it out without swiping a card that indicates that you actually have an electric vehicle. You get a little like key fob kind of thing that you swipe on the charging station. That allows you to take the charging port out to plug in. So it's secure that way. Right. Like I said, I mean, my own just observation outside my office is they're coming in and plugging in every day. So
How many cars?
So we have 5, and we'll have another 5. So there'll be 10. There'll be 10 in the township fleet, and then I think that what will probably happen in the 2020 budget is we will probably not buy cars for a while. It's anticipated that SUVs will be available in the 2020 for fully electric vehicles. And at that point, then there's certain applications that we can use electric vehicles as SUVs that it's not practical to use cars, and then we would look to maybe buy some SUVs. And then we should be good for a while because, you know, you don't want to, there's not any other positions to use those cars. That's, you know, once we begin to have that number of cars in our fleet, there is not generally a need for more, and we certainly want to utilize the gasoline fleet to its end of life too.
So Public Works and police vehicles?
It's not practical for either of them. It really, I mean, so no, I shouldn't say that. Now, Public Works, the water meter readers utilize them, and that's you know, they can use them. But as SUVs become more a part of the electric vehicle option, then that changes some others. But I would not anticipate police vehicles at this point anytime soon.
I have seen that there are police departments
For certain applications, absolutely. So, and this is where, just as we do the trickle down, as the vehicles become a little bit older, things like the Class 3 specials going to the schools could utilize electric vehicles. You know, there's applications, but right now, they're not cheap. So the cost effectiveness for that purpose, I don't know that there would be a great benefit, because here you're just driving a car, you know, the 3 or 4 miles to the school, it parks, and then drive it back. To spend $40,000 on a car for that purpose doesn't seem to make much sense. But
you're saying we have to have an official police vehicle.
we do,
for
but
them
you
to
can
drive to the
slap an
school.
emblem on the side of one of those electric vehicles. There's no reason why you can't do that. So, okay.
We should get them Fiats.
Oh, there you go. Or
If
Mini
that's all they're
Coopers.
doing with them, call them police cars. but-
Okay. And are there any questions for our construction code official who's sitting patiently next to me? No? Okay. See that? That was the easiest I've ever made you do, right? Okay. Painless. That's what we like. And now comes the pain. Carl,
Telephone charges went up.
No, wait.
I see.
you're up. Right?
No, I think
Oh,
IT
IT.
is-
Justin, come on up. You could just go. Actually, I apologize. I forgot you were still here. I'm having so much fun. IT. I must be in the beginning. Information technology. No additional staffing requests. OE budget. OE budgets are proposed at $193,100, an increase of $4,340. There's a $1,000 decrease in 026, which is maintenance of equipment, and an increase of $3,340 on the other contractual, and an increase of $2,000 on software licensing. And I will let Justin explain his increases and decreases.
These are basically what you guys hear me talk about every year, which is in some cases we do multi-year contracts for an overall savings. So we have peaks and valleys. That $1,000 decrease is one of those valleys. The increase in 028 reflects a change to the way that we do endpoint security. So that is an actual increased cost that we'll see going forward. And the software licensing is quite frankly, the cost of doing business. Software licensing goes up every year. So that's
What's endpoint security?
antivirus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have
You
to
can
have a
only
little
shake the-
fun with
You
them.
can only shake the IT guy out of me so much, all right? Look, I try.
Or when he's monitoring what you're putting on your device.
Right,
That's
exactly.
too.
So are there any questions on the OE budget for the IT department?
You were going to do some work for the library one time. We were talking about it.
The library has rejected us twice, and
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'll
Working
bounce
on
that right back.
I'm working them. Actually, the telephone hookup thing, I think they're open to that.
Mm-hmm.
Need to rework that.
Well, the first thing that we need to do is if there is a true, if we make a true effort to connect the library and the township with some form of IT, whether it be telephone or data, or whatever, is that we have to dig the trench.
Right.
That's step number one. We have to connect the building with the fiber, which there's this shred of money that remains from the bond issue to expand the library from many, many years ago. There's this tiny, tiny little bit of money, which is probably enough to connect the library to the municipal building with fiber. It's a little bit of money. It's enough to probably get you across the parking lot.
$2.50.
$1.380.
About 15 grand.
It's about $15,000. That's correct.
I'll get it started. Yeah.
Always the optimist, my IT director there.
Hey, listen.
It'll get us
You mean
started.
Verizon won't do it for free?
No, Verizon won't be doing it for free. That I can tell you. Verizon, Comcast, or anybody else who strings fiber for a living won't be doing it for free.
It'll get you about halfway to the parking lot. You can terminate the connection
Exactly.
very easily.
So, yes. So if you continue to flip to capital,
Second page.
Page 2. Technology capital. So this is the 5-year plan for technology capital that Justin updates every year. 2019, obviously being the year that, and that column is what we are budgeting for, or proposing to budget for capital, technology capital for 2019. And rather than me mess it up, I'll just let Justin do that too.
All right, so we'll start at the top. You'll see a computer, printer, server, iPad replacement program. This is our annual replacement program that we started some years ago. It's a rolling 5-year program. In most cases, it's a 5-year program. It's actually a total of $100,000. There's $15,000 for it in water and $85,000 in general capital. You have seen this every year, so I'll just keep going down. Stop me if you have any questions. Video storage and management upgrades, $75,000. This is a real installation for a server and storage for our video systems that are throughout the township. Some of which you already heard about, like the open space cameras. Up until now, we have done this with old stuff that I had, retired, and we used it as kind of a pilot system. And we really need to buy something that's standard now and not tape and chewing gum, really.
Will that also support videoing these meetings?
No, this is purely for our camera systems that are out and about in the public.
You're talking about NVR, or the equivalent of an NVR.
Yeah, it's a software and a hardware solution. Yeah.
Yep.
Question. the BOE admin building, is there any thought of putting some archival stuff there for IT, or no? It doesn't impact any of that?
No, their IT, you're talking about so the Board of Education
No,
currently
no.
has their IT
When
department
we do the
based there.
swap,
And when we do the swap,
we own the building
right?
next door.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plans to start putting some of our IT work there?
No.
I mean, storage.
No, without getting ahead of
Should we be
ourselves,
budgeting for it?
without getting ahead of ourselves, council has not made any decisions as to what we're doing with that building. So we would not, as staff, would not make any plans to do something with that building until council has decided what they're going to do with that building, which is a discussion for the future.
Next item on technology capital, server room, UPS refurbishments and upgrades. About 8 or so years ago, we made some major improvements to the data center here in this building. The hardware that is in the battery system that supports our servers is end of life and needs to be gutted and replaced, and that's going to cost us $25,000. That supports all of our main systems. It's our main data center here in this building. Automated deposit system for $25,000. So you heard some of the improvements during the tax collector's portion of the budget. This is the capital expense to get the rest of that done. So this is the initial purchase of some of the software and hardware to do that. There's two parts to the system, and this is the other part. So that's the capital expense to support those improvements that you already heard about. And the last item is $75,000 for what we call municipal WAN upgrades. Many of you know that our buildings are connected by fiber, both on this complex and the Public Works Department and the Social Services Department. This will allow us to connect them at a faster speed. We have not replaced those connections with the exception of the Public Works Department, which I was able to do last year. In the 15 years I've been here, they're operating on at least 17-year-old speed technology, and the software, the applications we have running in those buildings are obviously newer. So we're starting to see the strain, and we need to upgrade them. It is what it is.
Okay. You were having a archival backup with Princeton. Is there any need there for having the backup and the cost that may need to be budgeted for it?
We the hardware we bought some years ago. We continue to maintain it. I've been able to do some creative budgeting to make sure that we don't spend a lot on those upgrades, and so far so good. So we do budget for it, but I haven't had the need to come back to you for another capital expense because I've been able to work with the company to make sure that we maintain those costs as low as possible.
Are we all good?
Yeah, there's an advantage to going late.
There is. Wait till Carl reaps the benefits of that advantage right now.
This is about
when he has 8 budgets and 75 capital items to talk about.
This is my 13th budget presentation or so, and I've learned that over the years. So I don't have a problem going later. No. And the capital open space you've already heard. Those are the cameras. It's also reflected there, so as well. Okay. Good evening. Thank you all.
Going once, going twice. Sold.
And the current council room temperature is about 78 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we did nothing. Yeah. We just wished it to be so. I used my mind meld.
There are those that would say that the mere talk has raised the temperature.
Wow.
Politicians are always accused of putting out a lot of hot air.
Moving on. Streets.
I'm bringing a Snickers bar for Councilman Chase next meeting.
Oh, there's a commercial about that.
There is.
Watch more TV.
Streets, the first of the many public works budgets. So there are no requests for additional personnel in public works. We'll talk about water later. but there are no additional requests for staff in Public Works. And we can kind of wing through these, maybe, so because we have a lot of capital to talk about. The streets budget is proposed at $160,650, which is a reduction of $2,675. Is there any particular? Streets.
Fourth row, second tab.
Fourth row, second tab. 160, 650, down from 163, 325. This is a budget that at 3/4 of the way through the year had spent 77%, or roughly 3/4 of their budget. So it's about on the number.
Are you expecting road materials to get cheaper or to use less of them?
Use less as we pave more.
So this is like patching material.
Correct. Okay.
Yep.
Snow removal. Perhaps might need to use some of this tomorrow. Snow removal is budgeted at $560,000, up from $500,000 last year. Carl, the extra $60,000.
So
Refurbish the trust.
yeah, we went out to bid for a new contract. We've had the same contractor here probably for I've been down here 5 years, so 5 years. Went out to bid, and the per hour contractor for plowing aid has gone up by $50 an hour from the previous contract. So that's the $45,000, and then just general parts and plow parts and salt are the other two items.
And currently there's $820,506 in the trust.
Did you say went up $50 an hour?
Correct.
$50 brings it to what, from what to what?
It's at 185 now.
And it was a 135?
Correct.
That was 1 year? I mean, from.
That was low bid.
Different contract.
Different contract.
I understand. I'm just saying. So the best we did 1 year was that, and the best. Wow. Okay.
I also
Can't
think
predict,
that,
I understand.
and let's put this in perspective. We, and not to say anything other than we had a tremendous amount of poor performance in the previous contract, and this, and I anticipate, knowing that who this contract went to this year, that we will not have the problems that we had in previous years with missed routes and the inability to staff fully the 20 routes that we go out to bid for. And sometimes you have to pay a little bit more to get better service, and I think that that's what we'll get this year. But you're absolutely right, yes.
The other vendors out of
No,
business.
look,
Yep. No, I
probably
know
not
you're
the
not.
investment.
No,
I'm
I'm
just-
not. You're absolutely right. I'm agreeing with you. Absolutely.
So I know there's no average snow year, but on average, how many hours do we generally spend? How many hours of contracting?
You're right. There is no average. I mean, if we averaged it out, so I mean, I could go back and research over the last 20 years, but
No, okay, we're good. Go on.
waste removal. Waste removal is budgeted at $672,675, which is an increase of $24,375, and that takes into account an offset of $38,676 I know, let me get my words out, of tonnage grant that had previously been used at $63,051 in 2018 and $100,000 in the two previous years, 16 and 17, because this was money that had not been appropriated for any use, that was sitting in a reserve trust, that when I first became manager, I found, and it was agreed upon by the township, council to apply it spaced over years as opposed to using it in one lump sum. We now use the money that's received in the previous year's grant to apply to this year's costs for recycling. So that that really accounts for the difference of $24,375, is just that we've now used up all of that reserve trust that was previously unspent, and now we're just relying on our grant money, and that's the difference, the $24,375. Otherwise, the cost for recycling and our convenience center costs and our municipal hauling costs from the buildings, the general trash hauling, have remained the same.
Now, this is the mini dump costs in here? Or?
So the contractual services for containers and hauling, which is line 029.
Right.
Is the cost for the containers at the, among other places, at the convenience center.
We're not losing any money there.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said that that's the cost.
Okay, so we're covering our costs.
If we lose money there, it's probably due to the
The convenience center does not
Staffing
break. The convenience center does not break even. It's a service that's provided to the residents of the town, and it costs the town money.
But a great deal less money.
But a
than
great
it
deal
did
less,
some
oh,
years
absolutely,
ago.
without a doubt. And probably a great deal less than if we didn't provide the service and we had to go roadside and pick up all the garbage alongside the road that people would then dump.
Okay.
So it serves a purpose, and I think it's, again, this is kind of like the electric charging stations.
Right.
It's a service that the township provides that's a needed service, and I think that if it costs the town a little bit of money, it's necessary.
Yeah, as
We would be picking up garbage everywhere.
I'm just, numbers I'm picking out of the air, but I think that a few years ago, we were losing 300,000 a year on it, and now it's more like 30,000.
That's about right. Yeah, that's
'cause
correct.
I
I was
used
going to
to-
say about 60,000, but it's certainly not the 300,000 to 600,000 that it was in years gone by. Right.
Mainly because we're not having it open as many
Correct.
days, and also aren't we policing it better to not let people from other towns come and leave stuff off?
Well, that's absolute, but then, and certainly the labor costs are a factor as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Next tab, buildings and grounds. After today, are you sure about this? So buildings and grounds is at $255,250, which is a $1,575 reduction from the calendar year 2018 budget. Obviously, this includes all of the things to maintain our buildings, and really that's what it entails, is all of the things to maintain our buildings, much more so than the grounds. The grounds tend to be covered in other areas of the budget. But the biggest part of this budget is $155,500, so, about, two-thirds of it, for the cleaning and maintenance of our buildings and facilities. That's the cleaning service contract. As luck would have it, it came to light today that we'll be going out to bid again. In the never-ending saga of attempting to find a cleaning company that meets with our satisfaction and actually comes here every night and cleans, we'll be going out to bid again.
So it's like Murphy Brown's secretary.
It is, like Murphy
So-
Brown's secretary. Very, very similar, yes.
So because of that, I'll have to ask, Mayor, since we're on this issue,
Yes, sir.
it's not even considered or looked at to have it
Oh, yeah.
in-house?
Be 3 times the cost, at least.
Well, it depends ultimately what we'll pay for a service that will be of the standard and we'll keep.
Well, no, I'm saying it's $155,000 right now. A typical laborer in the township after 3 years is at about $45,000 a year, plus $30,000 to $40,000 in benefits, plus 14.5% of their salary in pension costs, plus 7.65% of their salary in withholding costs. So when you do all that math, that $45,000 employee just became a $100,000 employee, and you sure as hell need more than two of them. You got this building, the rec building, 40 Churchill Avenue, the 935 Hamilton Street, the animal shelter. It all starts to add up. And so at government rates, you know, it kind of prices us out of the market. That's why we go out to bid, and they're not paying what we're paying. They're paying part-time rates, part-time employees, and they're not paying the benefits packages that are anywhere near the cost or pension costs that we pay. So that's why it's cheaper to go out to contract. The problem is the problem is the system that is in place in New Jersey and in the United States called low bid. That is your problem, all right? And so you get people who overextend themselves and believe that they're going to be able to bid this job for a small amount of money, and then they get into it and they find out that they can't do it for the amount of money they bid. I would love to see a bid in around the $250 range. That would be a realistic bid, but it won't be the low bid because that's the way the system works. Middle bid, Scandinavia. That's the right way to go. Everybody shoots to the middle. Middle bid gets the win. That's the way it should be.
All right, I have to ask, does this budget include the whatever $100 controller to make sure the temperature is a little more consistent?
No, that's later in capital.
All right, well, I tried making a joke there, but apparently it's more than a $100 mark, so.
Now 76 degrees in here.
Exactly. Vehicle maintenance, next tab.
I think it's getting a little warmer than 76 up here, but.
I had a question I wanted to ask about the buildings and grounds.
Yes.
We buy the janitorial and household supplies even though we bid out the cleaning and maintenance?
This is just other material that our part-time staff uses throughout the buildings, miscellaneous things, over and above cleaning company items that they're required to clean.
Okay, because I know Sustainable Jersey makes noises about buying green janitorial supplies.
Okay, vehicle maintenance. Proposed at $195,600, which is a $24,400 decrease over the 2018 budget of $220,000. The biggest reduction here, Carl. Oh, go ahead. Explain to why. So again, not to make you think that we're suddenly deciding not to fix the vehicles in our fleet. There's a reason for that much of a deduction. So go ahead.
So back in 2018, when we were bringing the vehicle tracking or vehicle GPS system to monitor the maintenance and everything on the vehicles, the service charges, their monthly service charges that are required, were put under line 029, and for the amount of vehicles, it came out to be roughly about $53,000. As part of IT doing a multi-year agreement, software licensing agreement for all the vehicles, we've paid that through last year's capital.
So as part of the project costs as opposed to the recurring. So at some point, that cost will come back into the budget, but for the time being, it can be reduced out of the budget. But it also shows an increase of $25,000 on line 034, which is motor vehicle parts and accessories. And that is just a matter of, you can see the year-to-date on 10/31, we were already about $15,000 over budget on vehicle parts, and that is what happens when you maintain an aging fleet. Parts go up. Any questions on vehicle maintenance? Okay. So the next, the next line is utilities. Is that where you're at? What do you have? Oh, the Condominium Act. Where is that at? It's in with snow. I'm sorry. So no, go back to snow. So, and I apologize, I didn't know it was there. Under the same tab as snow is the Condominium Services Act, the very last page. It's budgeted at $170,000. That's what it was budgeted at last year. Don't be deceived by the way that works out as percentages in the year-to-date actual. It's just because how things get paid in the Condominium Services Act. It gets paid at, and not necessarily equally across the 12 months of the year. This is the money that gets paid for things like, reimbursements for snow plowing. This is the condominiums in the homeowners associations.
And that doesn't take into account the snowstorm in November.
No, this doesn't take into account a lot of things, and that doesn't, because the way it gets paid, it's just, it's not something that that you can look at a year to date and it makes sense. Okay. Jumping ahead then to utilities, which is a little out of order, but because that's just the way the budget numbers work. So overall, the utilities are budgeted at $2,325,000 this year. That's a decrease of $45,000. There's an increase in municipal building water, and that is because it's never been budgeted before, because we never used any water in the municipal building before. We never had a meter before. Now we have a meter. And we have a water utility, and it's water in, money out, more money in, water out, something like that. But the bottom line is we have to be accountable to the water utility from the municipal side. So this is one of those money in, money out kind of things. So we're budgeting $50,000 on this side. Obviously, the water utility will reap the benefit of that. But we have a water meter now, and in the past we didn't have a water meter.
So this reduces our leak rate.
It reduces our leak rate, correct.
This building?
It does, because it's money that was it was water that was not previously accounted for.
Right, we were buying water but not noting that we were using that water, so it looks like leak.
Correct. It's loss.
Right.
Unmetered loss. Yep.
I understand. But so that's.
But the purpose behind having a meter is so that we know that we don't have leaks.
No,
I mean,
everything
it's a
makes
great,
sense.
it's a good reason.
So we're finding about water we weren't billing for, we were
Right.
leaking, whatever.
Yep.
So my question simply was, is the 50,000 with this building we're sitting in now goes through water?
So it's not just this building, no.
Okay, all of them, or
It's
municipal?
It's multiple. It's where we put in meters where we didn't have them before. Our municipal buildings.
Municipal building.
Plural, correct.
Plural, thank you.
Yes.
We pay ourselves.
We pay ourselves.
How long ago did we eliminate that once-through cooling in the?
It was probably about 4 years ago
4
now.
years ago.
I was the manager. I was no longer in the police department, but it was after I became manager.
Never got credit for that with Sustainable Jersey, and we should have.
No. Okay. So are there any questions on the utility bills other than the ones that I brought to your attention? We are proposing a $100,000 decrease in street lighting. We continue to try to fine tune that, and this is one of those things where what we're seeing is public service, and there's a lot of discussion, and we don't need to belabor this tonight. There's a lot of discussion about LEDs and streetlights, and the BPU is involved with public service and tariffs and all of that other thing, and we've been pushing, and Carl's been working with public service to talk and to get a true report on what types of streetlights we have throughout the town, and an inventory and where we can switch to LED, and we're pushing them to do that. We do see some decreases in our electric bills, but we see increases because of the increase in number. So this is where it's kind of a balancing act to try to get it exactly right, and I think that we continue to just kind of shave a little bit off here and a little bit off there, and sooner or later we're going to hit the number. Right now it was at 919 3/4 of the way through the year, which was 70% of what was budgeted, so it was probably close. But then the other problem is the way the public service, this is the billings carry over into the new year and things like that. So we are cutting 100,000 now, and we're comfortable with that. Carl and I did talk about it. So
all new fixtures are LED, right?
Not necessarily. It depends on where the light is located, and so that's why, not necessarily. And it's because sometimes LED isn't the appropriate light for the application. And so there's a lot of things that are taken into account, but we push for LED wherever it can go in. Absolutely. And with all new developments are LED.
Right.
I will
Yes.
say one thing, my funeral home, PSE&G, we just got rid of the old lights and put in the new ones. Definite cost savings.
So this building, I don't know how much you've paid attention walking around. It seems brighter. It is brighter, but it's also all LED. This building is now completely retrofitted with LED lights. They did my office last week. You definitely notice the difference in the brightness, but obviously there'll be a significant cost decrease, cost savings from the previous fluorescent fixtures.
Definitely.
So, yep.
Mr. Manager, not for now, but could you ask Carl to update me on
The leak rate. Okay. Hey, Carl, tell him the leak rate.
not right now.
Is there anything else for Public Works on OE? No. Okay, so jump ahead to capital.
So is this
Well, it's right here it's on the main page, right? This is all of the capital listed here for the township, right?
So is this specific to your Hulk or?
Is what specific? He is responsible for all capital improvements and expenditures.
Okay.
So it's him and him alone,
And that's the,
other than IT.
and that's also item I on, we're now on item I on the agenda.
Capital. I see number 9 on my schedule. You're saying I don't. Is that the 9th letter of the alphabet? Mine says, I got a number on mine, because I can't follow letters, apparently.
Okay. Breaking news, it is the 9th.
Breaking
Go
news.
ahead.
All right.
The
So,
reason I was
capital request summary sheet. Priority 1, road resurfacing, 2019. So if you flip pages on after the cover sheet, the very first request sheet is general capital. Road resurfacing and BOE sidewalks.
So
Yes, sir.
The reason I ask is what, our second meeting, what is in, about, how many people do we have to see in our second?
This is the big meeting.
So I'm wondering.
There's 11 departments that you need to see, 11 topics that need to be done, including revenue and all of the other lines of business that aren't included in departments.
So what I'm wondering, and council can override me on this, that,
I'm going to bring him back
yeah.
after he sat here till 10 o'clock at night. I think that's
It's just-
unreasonable, Mr. Mayor.
It's
I do.
just that I'm getting pretty tired, and this is a major part of the budget. So if people are still sharp, we can keep going? All right, I've seen head nods. We'll keep going.
Well, and Mr. Manager, we can always revisit this. I mean, we won't have, well, we can, if we have questions,
If you have
follow-up
questions, you can ask me. I just think that,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
So, road resurfacing is proposed at $2.25 million. That's down $250,000 from what was proposed in the capital budget last year. The truth is that $2.25 million will will turn into $2.5 million and may turn into $2.75 million because of grant money. And I think that and the councilman is looking at me like I'm saying something that's different from what I talked to him about on Friday. Not really. The $250,000 was always proposed. It's anticipated that we can handle in any given year $2.5 million in paving. She's on the phone. I'm going to keep going, Jim. I mean, I can't have him stop.
Keep going.
So we're looking at the upwards of $2.75 million in paving if the $500,000 in grant money comes to fruition. The $500,000 in grant money is composed of $250,000 in state aid for 2019, and the Department of Transportation has indicated that they've recognized that the error that was made in the application process for the 2018 grant, and in all likelihood, they're considering right now giving us that $250,000 as well. So I don't think that I would recommend any adjustment to the $2.25 million, based on that and the fact that there's really an inability based on staffing and just the amount of time in any given year to get more than that amount of paving done in one particular calendar year.
Well, and also, I just want to, I'll build off of that if you don't mind, that the authority sent over to Public Works and to the township manager a list of entire area that's going to be ripped up of town, and some of those roads were were roads that we deferred from last year, which we knew we'd be ripping up. So that'll coincide also, so it frees up resources.
I'm sorry, Councilman, can you repeat that a little slower?
So just real briefly, last year I asked us to defer some roads for this year that I knew that we would be that the authority would be ripping up, so that we didn't over.
Sewage Authority. Thank you.
Authority, yes.
Okay.
So
there's going to be more roads to pave than this.
Right.
More work for our staff because sewage authorities.
Correct. We have a significant area, and that list has already been provided to Carl and to Bob well in advance. So I don't want people to think that there's a decrease in roads. It's just that we can allocate our resources where we know that other work is going to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. And then the other, my item on that sheet was $750,000 for sidewalks. The recommendation that was made out of the Public Works Committee and by myself as well is that we just continue the process of sidewalks and begin the engineering and design of the streets that are on the identified needs list that was developed in conjunction with the Board of Education several years ago. So that project, if it's approved, will just move forward with additional streets. Okay, jumping to the
more money if you want to. I'm more sure we can find some more money.
Well, you know, that's another thing that I don't know that there's an ability to do more than that in one given year. So that's really the reason why I think 750 is a fair number. Okay, moving on to the next sheets, which are the DPW requests, priorities 1 through 18. Priority 1, of course, Carl, I don't know that these are actually in the priority by number as of importance, but Carl will tell you that the key machine is the most important thing that he has. So if you buy him that, you don't need to buy him anything else this year. The key machine is enough. We have talked about this and made jokes about it, and I have to be honest with you, I did make jokes about it, and I have now come to see the light after having meetings with the supervisory staff of the Public Works Department and the need for oversight and for control over assets and the keys for those and to put them, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's more than just a place to hang a key. It's a whole accountability piece of machinery that goes to accountability and also goes to making the Public Works Department just a little bit more efficient. And so that's what the key machine is. Next, skid steer, $75,000. Does anyone know? This is we have one. This is like the little Bobcat kind of thing, and so we need to replace it because it's no longer serviceable. The one that we have.
1997.
1997. There you go. Number 3 is a milling machine for the skid steer. This is literally a milling machine for roads to go in and to grind up the surface to prepare for repair. Fits on the front of the skid steer, where the bucket would be.
That's for repair, not
just for repair, not for paving. No, just for repair. So rather than just go in and so this would be able to, so you can mill out a pothole as opposed to just throwing patch in it, where the repair is a little bit bigger and you need to do a little bit bigger surface area.
We don't have that now?
We don't have a mini miller for the skid.
So this will be able to have better and more complete pothole, or give me an idea of how you can do like a 20 by 20 foot patch with this, or what do you?
You're going to get longer permanent repairs.
That's what, okay. So
So the same pothole, such as, one on Blackwell's and, say, Blackwell's and Van Cleve for Old New Brunswick and New Brunswick,
The joints.
doesn't continue to reoccur.
So you can
be able
mill
to
out
zip
the
it out.
joint and pave where, where a lot of times where the roads at a T
And I,
intersection.
absolutely, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
My experience tells me this is
Yep.
something we could have used a long time ago. That's wonderful that we can do more longer-term and more complete repair work.
Absolutely.
Between
Okay.
repavings.
Number 4, brush grappler for the loader. So if anyone remember last year, please don't say your prayers that we don't have to go through that again. But when you have to go pick up the big giant pile of debris or brush alongside the road, it is. Yeah, this is to pick it up. It attaches to the big front end loaders.
The big hand.
Big hand. Parking lot paving. Number 5, Public Works Garage.
We are still tar and chip with numerous potholes.
We've put this off a long time, and I always
We've put it off since 1983.
And I always
Or
argue
84
against it, and
when it was built.
pave the public.
Pave the Public Works Garage parking lot. Now that we've completed all of the improvements in the area, including the salt
The deputy
barn.
mayor points out that this is an historic parking lot. And
It
we
is
should
now.
not change its character.
It probably would, if it was a car, it would qualify for historic antique license plates.
Wait, are you
It's
calling-
that old.
Are you saying I'm old? Because that's as old as me. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it is. So no, when it was originally constructed, it was intended to have a paved parking lot to cut costs way back when. It was originally gravel. Over the years, through the recycling of millings, it became, but it needs to be done in the proper manner, and we're going to work on that one. Number 6 is brine manufacturing system. So as obviously we've switched over in some regards to pre-brining as opposed to pre-salting roads. Go ahead, Mayor. I know you had a question. Oh, you don't? No?
I was just going to say this will help us surface our pickleball.
It will. No, we won't need the pickleball. You don't need to do it on pickleball courts. They're already salty from the brine. What's the ROI on it? Did you get it for him yet?
It's tough. The ROI is tough to calculate just because you don't know what the seasons are going to go through as far as the use. However, since we have a very low cost of water in town,
true,
the salt cost remains the same. So, depending on the number of events that we have, the need for the use for the brine on the roads, and costs that we currently pay per gallon. To have it shipped in, the only place we have right now is on a co-op in Bergen County. It could be as soon as 3.65 years or as long as 8 years.
So he did the
honest
math.
numbers.
And how long will the system last?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
It's all stainless steel and everything, so it's going to last a long time.
So in general, I suggest we come up with a 5-year average for snow events so that
We could. Sure.
we could answer these questions.
So the 5 years are 1996.
Linear, chronological.
Very quick, very quick. You get a point for that.
Okay.
So, sorry. On this though, this is basically I know it's brine making because coming from manufacturing, it's pretty much you're putting salt in water. I know there's feedback from DEP about brining right now and salt usage, and also which I don't want to get into that discussion. What?
No, I just said beet juice is a little expensive.
Correct. I know beet juice is expensive, and it's also frowned upon because the sugar is going to the water.
Yep.
There's multiple different types of brines, but so I guess my question was, if in 5 years we believe that this will help us in the short term, that if in 5 years we find that we'd like an alternative to test out in conjunction, we're still getting a return on investment probably in the first 3 years.
3-4 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless somebody wants to use cheese brine, but I've heard that Wisconsin frowned upon the smell that came from it.
Always go back to dirt roads.
Good to know.
So number 7, 2 trailer-mounted vacuums. This will, and I know that's, this is obviously not to vacuum carpets, but to clean up. These are trailer-mounted, pulled behind a truck, so that we can clean up leaves and debris in all the parks and municipal complex and things like that.
Okay.
And it says to expedite in clearing of leaves. This is a lot, and so we joke, but one of the things that we're very cognizant of is our stormwater management. And there's been a lot of discussion lately in the public about stormwater management and things like people calling it rain tax. You can call it whatever you want. Stormwater management is a very, very important function of municipal government. And when catch basins are clogged and all of that, these machines help expedite that process and make our stormwater facilities much more effective and efficient. Number 8, the mayor's favorite, Canal Road Guide Rail, Phase 6.
We're moving that, right?
Just so you know, there's 17 phases, and by the time we get done with Phase 17, it'll be time to start Phase 1 again. I actually had a meeting with the new director of the DNR Canal Commission, and I won't bore you with all the details of the 3-hour meeting, but one of the things we talked about was Merritt Parkway Guide Rail, and he promised me that the new DNR Canal Commission people would never require us to do that again. So once we're done with this, maybe we'll talk about the next time around with weathered steel, which is probably what should have been in there to begin with. But we have to finish what we started. Screw compressor, item number 9. Screw compressor sounds funny, but it's just a compressor on the other side of the garage from the main mechanics to work on the plows and the trucks on that side, because that compressor is no longer functioning. It's 1984, so it's old. So it's replacing an existing non-functioning one to allow for repairs to be done on heavy equipment on the non-mechanic side of the garage. $150,000, item number 10, traffic signal upgrades. This is to bring up to date all of the outdated and end-of-life hardware and electronics that control the township-owned traffic signals, older ones like at Cottontail and Campus and Berger and JFK. And, well, we already have money set aside for JFK in New Brunswick, but DeMott in New Brunswick, those are the older ones that now this will also allow, with the new equipment inside the cabinets, to be go to battery backup as well for power failures.
Do we have money set aside for our share of the Main Street, Laurel Avenue traffic light in Kingston?
We do. Okay. Number 11, aerial platform, man lift. We'll go by a lot of different names. We have a number of different buildings that have high ceilings, and we currently utilize ladders, which is unsafe to put our employees up to do things like change light bulbs in the municipal court or the ceiling up in the Public Works garage. This would allow us to maintain all of our light fixtures and what have you that are higher and do it in a safe manner rather than putting people up on ladders, which is just not safe.
Well, great idea. How high does that go?
This one is 25?
20.
20 feet.
Just curious, would you actually use something like this, or not, you couldn't use this, like putting up your banners? That's a different process.
We have a bucket truck for that. So
I was
that's
just
yeah.
going to say.
Yeah, we have a bucket truck for that.
Got last year.
Yeah, you're right.
Item number 12, a V-plow for the 244 loader. This is literally a snow plow that's in the shape of a V. I'm sure you've all seen it. This is for the small loader that we have. This will allow us to do with one pass all of the multi-purpose paths that we have, like along JFK Boulevard and Van Cleef Road, things that we have an obligation to clear from the snow, rather than using pickup trucks with angle plows. Then they tear up the turf and things like that. This is just drive down the center of the path and push the snow to either side. Item 13 is 2 salt spreaders to replace end-of-life rotted out steels with aluminum, replacing 2 with 2. Fence repair and replacement at the convenience center is item number 14. If any of you have been down along Berry Street or School Avenue, you see that the fence is in a serious state of disrepair based on age. It's not just that we protect the convenience center from people coming in and dumping stuff in our dumpsters in the middle of the night, but we also store material, pipe, fire hydrants, and the like. And so fences keep people out, right? Isn't that what they say? Fences keep people out?
You talk about chain link.
Chain link, yes, sir.
Was there any request ever, considering it abuts the residential neighborhoods, to put a lesser transparent, more stockade type of fence just for the aesthetic quality of life?
Nope, never been a request.
Well, it's not my ward, so I will leave that for
never been a
Carl. I
request.
was just wondering, because I know years ago it was talked about when we put in the RPM development. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, it jumps from item number 14 to item 17 on my sheets, but I know it's not. The next request is an R1234YF recharge machine for $8,500. What this is just the up-to-date refrigerant recharging station for motor vehicles. This is the new refrigerant. Our old machine can no longer do the newer vehicles. This is to replace refrigerant and work on the air conditioners. Exactly. Next item, roadside mower, $115,000 to replace an aged-out unit. This is one where we will remove one of our roadside mowers and replace it with a new one because it's no longer serviceable. And these are the bigger mowers, obviously, at that cost, not the small mowers used on fields. These are the ones with the big, giant arms that articulating arms that mow all of our rural roads. I'm going to say we're missing 2 detail sheets because I know what they are. All right, so the next one is ditch digger for tractor. All right, now let me change this a little. This is no longer ditch digger for tractor. Some of you may recall, and it's been many years ago, there was a shared service agreement that the town had with some neighboring towns for a machine that cleaned out the ditches on the rural roads and restored them to their proper state for drainage purposes. It looked like a road grader almost, a big machine. We had talked about the possibility of utilizing a roadside mower with an attachment. That's what this is at $190,000. Since this was originally researched and put into the capital budget, we've had discussions with another neighboring town about the possibility of, again, entering into a shared service agreement, but not with a machine like this, but with a machine similar to the type that we had in the past, an all-in-one machine, as opposed to something that had attachments that would be more suited for less usage than if 2 towns were sharing it. It's anticipated that that'll be in the $360,000 to $400,000 range if we were able to do that. My suggestion is that we budget this $190,000, and Carl has already begun the discussions with the Public Works Director for that town, and I am planning on having a discussion with their township manager, who I know very well. He used to work here a long time ago. And we're going to see if we can enter into a shared service agreement to purchase the equipment and utilize the equipment and maintain the equipment between the 2 towns, as opposed to shouldering this cost by one. So that's right now what this is. It's not as it appears on the sheet, with a ditch digger for a tractor, but it is a ditch cleaning device machine, the whole machine.
So half of 400,000 would be about 200,000.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. If we leave the 190 there right now,
You got
that's
both options.
yeah, exactly. And if it doesn't work out for the shared service, we can still explore the idea of doing it on our own. Okay. And the last is the telephone pole installation, which we've already talked about.
So going back a little, how many
Yes, sir.
roadside mowers do we have?
Currently have roadside mowers. We have 2.
How many field mowers?
Talking about like Whams, larger than the typical Bobcat.
I don't know what I'm talking. I mean, talking about, I don't know the words.
Like
I
Middle
mean,
Bush Park, to mow
yeah.
Middle Bush Park,
Yeah.
the grass fields. We have 2 of those.
Okay, and then other types of mowers.
Mowing for like around the municipal complex and everything, we have 12.
You know, the one where the guy sits on it with the sticks? We got 12 of those.
What percentage of your time during the summer or spring or fall, during the grass growing time, what percentage of the time is spent mowing lawn? Mowing. Just mowing.
April to October when it's not raining out.
10 guys every day.
Really? Okay.
A lot of acres.
The
A lot of
entire
acres.
park maintenance staff of 9, I should say, the foreman is generally, although he's not ruled out
So there's
forever. but
9
9 guys are out there cutting grass every day.
So 9 guys mowing, but you got more mowers than that.
There's,
I understand.
Summer help
Yeah.
breakdown.
I
Yeah,
understand.
when that's your open space. People work in open space and then break.
I
They
got
break.
it.
You know why.
I got it.
I know. Okay, so that's the equipment. DPW vehicles. There's only 3. A Mason dump with a plow to replace an aged out vehicle. Mason dump with a plow. $75,000. Number 2 is a 4-door pickup with a plow to replace an aging pickup truck with plow. This is actually a step up from the replacement. It's a standard pickup truck that's being replaced with a 4-door pickup truck. I agree with Carl on this. The idea here that the 4-door pickup truck allows for one vehicle to transport a crew to a job as opposed to 2. So it just seems to, for the cost benefit here, for the amount of money that it costs for the difference, it's worth it to get the 4-door pickup truck in this particular application. And the last one says transit van recreation. It's under the Public Works tab because it's just one vehicle. It is to replace one of the 14 passenger rec vans that are utilized to transport both kids and adults for programs. It's just end of life, and it needs to be replaced. 1999, 20 years old. It qualifies for QQ plates.
So
All right, I probably rode in it while I was working for.
You probably rode it in as a child? Yeah.
No,
maybe.
when I was working for Parks and Rec. Then okay.
So just so the rest of council knows, financial oversight cut a number of.
We cut, I don't know, probably about a half a dozen from that first list of Public Works things.
And one of them was a big
Big dump truck, big roller, and a big paving machine, and the assorted equipment that goes with it.
Yeah, Carl cried when we did that.
Yeah, that was about $600,000 worth of cuts.
So I know this was in last year's budget, but have we really utilized substantially that, whatever you're calling it, the piece of equipment that allowed us to do more significant tree trimming?
So that's a very good question. We have utilized the big bucket truck. However, we're going to be utilizing the big bucket truck this spring a whole lot more, in all likelihood, and I'll tell you why.
Good.
One of the things that we had discussions about was providing training to a certain number of our employees to meet the public service requirements for working their high voltage lines, and we have that training scheduled when?
Late March or beginning of April.
late March, beginning of April. We're actually going to host the company to come here and provide training to our employees as well as some other area towns that have expressed an interest, so that we'll not only be able to trim trees where we'll be able to trim trees near power lines that we right now don't have the qualifications for.
So we won't have to wait for PS.
So a lot of times we won't have to wait for PS. I'm not saying for all applications. I don't want you to think that every time a tree needs to be trimmed near power lines that we'll be qualified to do it. But in a lot of circumstances that we're not qualified or capable now, we'll have the training to do so and the equipment to do so in the future. And that training's early spring.
Thank you. That is great. And we'll put that to use, I'm sure.
We will, no doubt. Next sheet is construction code, and I stand corrected. It's 4 electric vehicles, not 5, with the associated. I know that one. It was Lupo that was here though. It's 4 for construction. There's 1 in the water budget for the second water meter reader vehicle, with 4 electric vehicles and their charging stations. You've already done police.
Are we going to be able?
We're winding down.
Are we going to be able to trim that tree on Weston Canal Road?
You know what tree I thought was most important to do?
Talking about the elm?
It's a huge tree.
They topped it already.
They did, okay.
PSC&G had a contractor take care of it. The
clear-
contractor was actually scared of the tree.
It's clear to the lines?
Everything, going right through.
Wow, yeah, that was a.
But that went down in either July or August of last year.
That was a widowmaker.
There's a tree that looks like a totem pole on Canal Road. We'll be able to do that one too.
On my property?
Right on the edge of your driveway. I think we're going to get somebody to carve it or something. It needs to look a little special. That one, yes, you know one of them. All right, I'm sorry. The next capital request sheet is fire prevention. Fire prevention has requested 2 vehicles, a utility body to replace an aged-out utility body that's replacing an existing 2007 utility body truck, and that's at $60,000. And at $55,000, a crew cab pickup truck to replace a 1998 S10 pickup truck that's still being utilized to this day and clearly should not be. And that's to fire prevention. Municipal building.
Just a quick question.
Yes,
Is there any salvage value in all these old equipment, or you just write them off?
We auction them off and get a couple $100.
Okay.
If we go 4 more years, can we get the QQ plates for it, or?
Yeah, that one qualifies now. Window door replacement phase 3, $625,000. This will be the last phase of window and door replacements in the municipal building. This will do all of our entry doors, and it will put in concrete block in the center atrium to replace the windows.
Liar.
It is. I will tell you that having the benefit now of several months of new windows in my office, there is a significant difference in, well, just the fact that I don't hear the wind whistling through them anymore is a bonus, but they're definitely much more energy efficient. I hope that we'll be able to do an analysis. I mean, we just did an audit on all of our buildings, including this one, and I think that we'll be able to really have a baseline as we move forward to see what kind of cost savings between the lighting and the heat and air conditioning. And, you know, it's cold in here again, so they must be working.
It's 48 degrees for people who are keeping track.
So, see, you were worried about getting sleepy. You're not going to get sleepy now.
And the atrium area is just freezing in the winter.
It is, absolutely. And that was the last, and that'll tell you right there that those windows don't hold any heat. Right. All right, diesel tank install at the municipal building, $40,000. At the gas pumps, currently at this facility, we do not have a tank for diesel. There's a tank only at the Public Works garage. This will offer us not only the ability to have the fire companies who purchase gas from us come here instead of having to go to the Public Works garage for those, but also it's redundant, and it allows for a redundant source of diesel in an emergency, which I think is certainly necessary for us to be able to provide diesel to emergency vehicles as well as our Public Works vehicles should there be a failure at the Public Works garage. Install curbing at DeMont Lane. We've had a lot of discussion about this over the years, and it was cut from the budget a couple years. This is to complete the curbing from driveway to driveway and up DeMont Lane towards Amwell Road, where there is currently not any curbing at all, and it becomes becomes a less drainage issue, potholes, and all of those.
I'm sorry, where would it run?
It would run from right about where the schoolhouse, in front of that area where there's no curbing, all the way to the Amwell Road, where it would connect where there's curbing a little bit in from Amwell Road, in front of the post office.
And will we have at least a dedicated
Yes, driveway.
Bicycle lane? Even better would be a sidewalk along there.
Well, there is a sidewalk there already.
There's a sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk for the entire length of DeMont, all the way down DeMont Lane. Absolutely, we got to go clear it. We'll be able to use that V-plow there too. We have a sidewalk all the way to Amwell Road from our frontage.
Well, actually, it would be good to have also a bicycle.
Yes.
Just a painted setting off. I'm thinking of complete streets, and I keep wanting to put in this complete streets resolution, but I keep waiting for the two of you to comment on what I sent you months ago.
It needed no further comment. It is good as it is.
Okay.
Sidewalk repair replacement, municipal complex. This is just the continuing replacement of broken concrete in our municipal complex as identified by the Joint Insurance Fund safety audits. HVAC controller management upgrade, $65,000.
Do we really
There
do
you
that?
go, Mr. Mayor. I don't think, if there's nothing else that you leave in this budget at this point, I think you've made the case tonight for leaving that in the budget.
So I think the
Management
average person
upgrade.
would be asking $65,000 why?
There's controller upgrades. The current computer system that runs everything is more than 10 years old. It's running on Java. So the software needs to be upgraded, as well as some of the modules that are in the ceiling that attach and connect to the HVACs that we just had replaced about 5-6 years ago.
Yep.
And
This is the overall control for a building that's about, 24,000 square feet? And it's not just running a window air conditioner in your house.
and until we buy this,
You will have this fluctuating heat and air until it gets fixed, absolutely.
can we get it tomorrow?
We can work on it.
It better work.
You know what? All I can say is they
I
spent
second-
more than that in the public safety building, and I still don't know if that's gotten right.
I second the
wasn't him.
motion, Councilman Chase.
I'm getting, so next is the public safety building. Item number 1, roof repair, replace, $45,000. This is the last of the roof repairs under the HVAC systems that were put on the roof to replace the original ones on the public safety building. Now that those have all been replaced, the final bit of roof repair and replacement can be done to keep the water from getting into the ceiling of the court. Number 3, I'll just skip right over number 2. Number 2, employee locker replacement. This would be both in the men's and women's locker rooms of the public safety building. The building is now 26 years old, and the lockers have seen better days. Now, I don't believe that all of them need to be replaced. There's a number of lockers in the locker room, in the men's locker room, that are utilized for purposes other than employees. I think there's 150 lockers in there, and there's about 100 male police officers. So the other 50 have been utilized for storage of police equipment for a number of years. I don't know that those would need to be replaced, but generally there's wear and tear. It's 24-hour day, 7 days a week. Somebody's going in a locker in there, and they take a beating over time. So
I recommend council members take a tour of the locker room.
if you question it. I don't recommend anyone take a tour of that locker room, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, I think I would never put an enemy in that locker room, let alone a friend.
My point being, I think we need to do more for that locker room. I mean, it is.
Well, we are. Number 3, the locker room bathroom shower replacement at $75,000.
The whole.
This would be a gut. So police officers generally not only store clothes in their locker, but oftentimes take showers in the men's locker room, because there is a weight room that they work out in. They work out, they take a shower, they put their uniform on and go to work. The showers, again, are also 27 years old now, and they're pretty much in deplorable condition. I mean, imagine having that many employees going through showers on a regular basis. It's time for them to be rehabbed. So I think that it's fair that those be included in the capital requests.
Is there also a women's shower?
There is, and that would be included in this as well.
That would be included.
Yes. It's lockers for both the men's and women's room, and the locker showers for both as well. Okay, that's public safety.
And it is
Moving
getting
on.
warmer now.
It is. Senior Center. In the Senior Center, it's requested that $95,000 for door replacement. This is all the exterior doors in the building. And again, that building is old as well, and it's time for certain to be replaced. And mostly because they are so heavy, in certain cases, they're not ADA compatible.
The front, the doors?
The doors.
They need replaced?
They need to, yeah.
Even like the side emergency
the
doors?
building is 30 years old, and none of the doors are ADA compatible due to weight and the closures. So it's a senior center building.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we're proposing the replacement.
All right.
The roof replacement at $150,000. Now, that's another building now. All the HVAC work has been done. So now would be the time to replace the building. Again, it's 30 years old, and time for a roof replacement. The last is the accordion doors in the meeting room. I'm sure anyone who's been in the building when there have been events, they have become unserviceable and non-functioning and very difficult, and the employees have a hard time getting them closed. They need to close them often for the different programs that divide the building up. And this is not power ones; these are manual ones to replace the ones that are there now.
And about 6 years ago, I went there.
You did?
I nixed it. They did some repairs, but it can only last so long.
It was my first budget year as manager.
Oh, it's 5
Yep.
years.
So it was 2013 budget year. You're absolutely right. So that's 6 budget years ago.
All right.
So that's the senior building. And the last is water. Well, let's just get through the water capital since I'm there right now. The water capital includes the technology capital that Justin spoke about earlier at $15,000 for computers, printers, servers, and iPad replacements for those in the water utility.
Just for the general public, the water budget is separate.
Right, and we're going to talk about the water budget once we get done with the capital. I just figured we were in the page, so let's just keep moving along with it. So that's just the general technology upgrades for water IT equipment. The general improvement capital includes a sidewalk at 12 Berry Street. For those of you who don't remember what 12 Berry Street is, that's the old Public Works garage, which is utilized by the water utility. There is no sidewalk along Berry Street, and now with the inclusion of the pump station, and it makes for no place to walk but in the street when they cross over from the main Public Works garage at 40 Churchill to go to work at the water garage. So we want to provide them someplace safe to walk. A backhoe at $175,000. The way that this generally works is the backhoe is purchased by the water utility, who utilizes it for as long as we have the one in the Public Works Department in service. And then when the Public Works one goes out of service because it's no longer serviceable, the one from the Water Department goes to Public Works, and the Water Department gets a new one. That's what we're proposing here, that hand-me-down that has worked in the past. $80,000 is the standard valve replacement program that we do annually. $50,000 is the standard hydrant replacement program that we do annually. $440,000 for a vac truck. So everyone knows what the sucker truck is, right? Well, the truth is, our vacuum truck has sucked its last suck. It's done. That sucks, exactly. Unfortunately, it doesn't anymore. It's in the shop far more for repair than it's out actually doing what it needs to be doing. This is the machine that we use for things when water main breaks, to clear out the trench when we're trying to work on the pipe. It's what we use to clear out curb boxes to try to work on valves. It's what we use to clear out catch basins when we have to do that, or underground, under driveway and under roads, drainage pipes. It's a
So Sewage Authority has one. They use it how often?
Well, we're using it almost daily, but
they use it every day.
Right, so we can't spare one easily.
So that's my point is, well, they're expensive trucks, but
really you can't share it. Yeah, you can't. I mean, we use ours almost every day.
We've made it available in emergencies, but
when ours is broken and we have an emergency and we need one, you say, okay, you can use it. But that's usually 2 o'clock in the morning when you guys aren't using it. So that's okay.
So I'll help make the argument also that, if I'm not mistaken, this vac truck was bought at about the same time as our old vac truck. The authority has already purchased a new one. I mean, we utilize it, I think, about 10% more.
Yeah.
But still, the lifespan of the equipment for something that vital, we've already replaced it.
Yeah, and so if people drive around and see one with a Sewage Authority emblem on it and one with a Township emblem on it, that's why.
That is why.
They're
yes.
used a lot.
And it's an important piece of equipment. Next is pump station upgrades, $450,000. This is general upgrades of a variety of types to our water pump stations throughout the town, whether it be improving the type of pump, electrical work, whatever is necessary. But there's a number of upgrades that are necessary in the pump stations throughout the town, and that's what that's for. Water testing bench equipment, $25,000. This would be to bring up to date all of the equipment that we would utilize to do bench testing of water meters to ensure that they're operating properly. The equipment that we currently have is far out of date, and this is the type of equipment that you can't have out of date equipment to test meters. They have to be up to date. It has to be up to date and able to be calibrated. And our equipment is now antiquated, and we can no longer really adequately bench test our meters. Water line replacement at $1 million, which is the standard $1 million appropriation for water line replacement, and the $2 million that is the Route 27 water line extension. Those in Public Works have heard about this, and some of you also have heard of it when we've talked about it at other meetings. Now that we're on, hopefully, the final leg of the relining and the work on the Little Rocky Hill water main, I had suggested that we explore the possibility of making an interconnection with New Jersey American at the southern end of that line. New Jersey American has been amenable to it, and they believe that it can work. This $2 million is to further that water line extension to make that interconnect at the southern end so that the Little Rocky Hill main is no longer a dead-end main, and we are able to purchase water from New Jersey American at the southern end of our main and forego the higher cost South Brunswick water. And also that'll work well with the connection of the Little Rocky Hill main to our main northern system.
New Brunswick water.
It's New Brunswick, it's New Jersey American, it's a mixed bag of water in the pipes, but the point is that it'll make our entire system interconnected north and south,
Right.
which is a good thing.
Now,
Redundant backups.
Yes.
I know it's always requested any new development that the water lines be looped. In other words, connected
Yes.
at both ends in case one end is out. And this would do that.
This
for
would do
this
that,
line.
correct. It would absolutely do that. It would provide a source of water at both the north end and the south end, so that you kind of want both ends working against the middle as opposed to the water going from one end to the other and stopping. So
And it's better for the quality of the water.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it's better for the quality of the water as well. Correct.
Incidentally, that's down for, on the paper that I have before me, that's down for $1,750,000. And the vacuum truck who's,
Yeah, that one's actually, Kathy just said that sheet should be swapped out.
yeah, because the vacuum truck wasn't on this at all.
Bob, one quick question. One
Whether or
question.
not
How many
we're
pump
gonna look at
stations do
these
we
again.
currently have in the water system?
We have 6.
6. Okay. So this would be applicable to. We'd be able to distribute this over the 6 stations, or are you
Do you
targeting?
mean the 450?
Yes.
The 450 is on 5 of the 6. Berry Street isn't on that list.
This was one.
518 won't be, so 4 of the 6.
Oh, 4 of the 6, right. Actually, no, he's right. 4 of the 6 is this. So Berry Street isn't included because that's a new station, and the 518 pump is being replaced as part of the Little Rock Hill project.
Okay. So we're looking at about 100,
All
110.
upgrades are being
Yeah, about 100,000 apiece.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then vehicles in the water utility, a meter replacement van. This is the van that includes all of the tools and equipment to go out and replace water meters in people's homes, rather than shuffling it from vehicle to vehicle. There is a vehicle dedicated to that purpose, and this is to replace the one. So when it's a replacement van, it's a replacement van for the replacement van. Like a tongue twister. You get it? There you go. See, I can still laugh. It's not that late. It's past your bedtime. We used to have council meetings long past this time.
I was here.
I know. And then one electric vehicle for the second vehicle in the water fleet for water meter readers. And then we go back into the tabs here.
I just had a question
Yes,
before
sir.
you move to the last
Sure.
item. The door replacement at the senior center, which now I'm remembering was an issue, and they are heavy, I think you mentioned that, are the 95,000, will they be, you might have said it, I'm sorry, I forgot. Will that have automatic doors, more?
Not on the sides. In the
No,
front,
no.
they already are
In the
automatic.
front? They all are? Because I thought
Yep,
someone.
nope, they
had
are
asked.
in the front. The
Both?
front building is all automatic.
Maybe it was just the weight of them. Somebody had mentioned to me that they thought it was
The weight
a
of
little
the doors are
dangerous.
incredibly-
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
As we
And
were
what's
talking about it,
happening is
remember,
that the
they're
machine, the mechanism to
old.
do the automatic door opening is constantly breaking because the doors are so heavy.
So this will just make them easier and safer. Okay.
Where are we going?
All right, we're going to the water tab, which is very much towards the back of the tabs on the
Third to last tab in the book.
there you go.
Third to the last.
Okay, so in the water utility, there is a request for additional personnel. The additional personnel requested are one administrative clerk position at $35,000 salary. There's currently one clerical position in water and 1 clerical position in Public Works. The demand on the water side has become significant as far as phone calls in, scheduling, and all of the related clerical work necessary. And so there's a request for 1 full-time clerical staff for the water utility and 1 laborer. As you can imagine, and I talked about it when we had the collector here, the system is growing. You know, every time we add another house to the system, it creates more work, and we've added several thousand houses in the last 15 years, and the water utility continues to grow in revenue and also continues to grow in work. So that's why the request for additional labor.
It is self-funded.
It is self-funded. It's self-liquidating, as they say, and Andy's always happy that I remember that. Yes, we are self-liquidating. We are. Looking at the OE budget, which is 2 pages long, so I refer you to the second page that has a budget department request of $16,535,959.26, which has a significant difference of $2,907,500. And Kathy, would you like to explain why the difference of $2,900,000 or nearly $3 million in the water utility budget? Or do I have a bad page?
I'm not seeing this.
What is that number? That million, that $1,290,000, that's the difference in proposed budget. Right. Yeah. And where is that number from? Right.
But I'm seeing a $12 million.
Operating budget, but if you go down.
No. All the way to the bottom in the gray.
Very far right. Oh.
Total water utility budget request,
Right.
12
The
million.
very last right-hand column says the difference in the proposed budget between 2019 versus 2018 is $2,907,500.
Not on my paper.
$1,287,000. You got a different sheet.
Ours says 1.287. Difference.
Oh, maybe when we revise the total.
When you revised it.
We split it up between the capital outlay, which is 395,000, and the balance of the 4.2 million in capital requests. I think this is I think the 2.97 is the right amount. Yeah, I'll have to get you revised sheets for that.
You have 1.828.
Yeah, as your difference, you have 1.8, and the number is actually
We have
1.2?
1.287.
Oh, well, 1.287. So that's wrong. That's not the right number. So what we can do is we can call it quits here. You'll get new sheets for the next meeting. What I can tell you is before we bang the gavel, there is about right now proposed $2.9 million increase in the water budget over last year. Last year was budgeted at $13,623,000. This year is budgeted at $16,536,000. That's due primarily to the fact that $4.2 million of the capital budget is being budgeted as cash. Right? That does not have to be the final number. That's how this is proposed right now. Last year, it was budgeted at 1.4 as opposed to 4.2. There's the difference in your budget. And the operating budget itself, all right, forget about capital for a second. The operating budget for the water utility is proposed at $12,335,000. Okay, I'm sorry, $12,330,000, which is a $165,000 increase on a $12,300,000 budget. When you factor in the capital, that's where the balance comes as to how much cash we use versus how much we bond. Right now, it's proposed at $4.2 million of cash, which is about 1.5, so that's $2.7 million more in cash than last year, which is really almost the difference total. It's 2.742 million different.
Basically, it's just showing you if you approved all of the capital requests, what the budget would go up to. We could bond it, and being that it was self-liquidating, there's no 5% required. All that does is account for whether we do it out of capital improvement funds, i.e. capital outlay, or the balance out of either out of the cash fund balance or out of bonds. It just accounts for if you approved every single penny of what a capital, what it would come to.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. And so she can get you the updated sheets for the next meeting, but that's the consideration that we'll have to do moving forward as to how we fund things in the water utility. And then just like we always make the decision on how we fund things in the regular budget. But in this particular case, what this is reflecting is a full cash outlay for capital this year as opposed to bond. So that's where the increase, so if we did a full cash outlay, it would increase the budget by about $2.9 million.
So what we have before us simply doesn't figure in the capital outlay at all. So
Exactly.
that's why it comes out.
And that's why it comes out the way it does.
A decrease of 1.235
So to make sure,
something.
to make sure I'm
million.
understanding the 4 million, we don't get into making decisions, I don't understand, but the 4 million, out of that 4 million that you're talking about, 4 million plus, that includes the $2 million price tag for
Includes
the.
all of those
Right,
things.
okay.
Everything that we talked about, yep. Everything we talked about.
Don't need to decide tonight, but we should consider, as we're thinking about this, something like that is a one-time cost. So that's the kind of thing.
You are correct.
Practicality, it's a one-time cost to bond something like that, but we'll figure.
Yeah. But the other thing is, we always look, so things are looked at a little bit differently when you make the determination as to how to fund things in the water utility versus the general budget. And that's all I'll say, and we don't need to talk about it more tonight, but that's the number, and that's why the number is what it is.
Done?
We're done.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone who says, anyone who says no, I don't care. We are adjourned. Be well, Franklin.